Hello, everybody. There we go. That looks good. Just want to have my tablet. But the tablet makes it easy to check out schedules and check out what's happening. So this is going to be okay. So I'm going to start off with EIBI space for the schedules. I'm going to check out HF Underground for the Pirates. And we're going to check out Priam for number stations. Here we go. Just going to check if anything was supposed to start at 20. No, there's kind of a jump from 1910 to 21. Okay. That's interesting. So HF Underground, let's see if there is a pirate right now. Nothing reported as this time. So that's quiet. So I'm going to just go here to the schedules. Okay, guys. Hello. Welcome aboard to this live show. And I hope that you enjoy this show today. So we are here to talk about radio, shortwave radio, and radio of any kind. I'm just going to do a little something here. Move this a little more like this, maybe. There we go. And we're here to just have fun and talk about any type of radio that you wish, even amateur radio. I got a couple of questions that we'll answer. One that is interesting because it is one that I've seen a lot of contradicting things on about antenna tuners, and we're going to talk about antenna tuners because it's not up. They don't do what a lot of people think they do, and it's interesting because we're going to put kind of the facts straight as to what they actually do, and how useful they actually are or not, depending on what you have as an antenna. So, hey, welcome aboard. This is the live show. We are here every Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. This comes to you from a very cold Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. And so the temperatures last night dropped to minus 30 Celsius, which is, I don't know, minus 20 Fahrenheit or something. I don't know exactly what the conversion is, but minus 30 is what we got. Right now, as we speak, it's in Celsius, of course. Let me just check the weather. It's supposed to warm up all day, so right now, as we speak in Celsius, it's minus 21. So this is the temperature we're having right now in Montreal. And we actually broke a record of electricity consumption in Quebec. The total capacity of Hydro-Quebec is 44,000 megawatts. And we actually consumed, apparently, last night and this morning, 42,000 megawatts of power. So imagine how much electricity has to be generated, as most people are heating with electricity here in Quebec. So that is the big chunk of the electricity consumption. So anyways, nice to have everybody on board. Cool to see everyone here, and hope that everybody will enjoy the show today. We have a beautiful chat room if you are interested in sharing with others. The chat room is fun. It's great people and great people to share with, and lots of people, helpful people can ask questions. Here is a place where anyone can ask any question about radio. It's fine. We're not born with a radio in our hands, and we all started where we didn't know anything about the hobby. So don't be afraid to ask. It's this is the place for that. Also, the after this, there's a Facebook group where you can go and join in, and the Facebook group is where this continues. Very active group, more than 3,000 members, and we add a lot of members every week, so it's growing fast. So pretty cool. And this is kind of cool to see the activity and see everybody having a lot of fun with all of this here with radio. No, radio isn't dead. It's different, but it's fun and it's still alive and well. And there's a lot to learn and a lot to listen to. The more you are diversified, the more you are interested in different things, the more it is. I think it is interesting. Just to give you an example, I have a 12-page for we talk about the Canadian International DX Club, which is the radio club here in Canada, where we have a bulletin every month called the Messenger that comes out, and the Messenger is a bulletin that talks about all aspects of radio. It's really DC to daylight, not just shortwave, everything radio. And for the month of February, I have a 12-page article in the utility column about signals coming out of Australia. Yeah, Radio Australia might be dead, but I can tell you, utility-wise, there's a lot that comes out of Australia as of signals, of maritime signals, weather charts you can decode, aeronautical, military. There's tons of things going on out there, and I think it's a really good DX also, if you're trying to get those signals from here in North America. So that's coming up in the February Messenger. So for those that have not asked, you can get a sample copy of the Messenger at sample at CIDX Club. Email here .ca. So this is where you're going to, if you've never asked, very important. If you did, we will know about it. And you can subscribe to it's not just a subscription. You can become a member, because this is a club. You're part of a club, part of a radio gang, and you can. It's $10 a year, 25 to 3 years. You get that bulletin every month. You get a Zoom meeting once a month where we gather, talk about radio. Great place to be. Everybody's welcome. You're part of a club, and you get the Messenger with tons of information about radio. And why not check that out for sure. So let's check who's out there. So Richard Wagner, nice to have you here, Northeast Illinois. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here. Anthony Franz, nice to have you on board from Florida. We have Roberto Rojas. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Cheers. We have Master Players Radio and Television Plus Gaming. Nice to have you here, Bobby. WA5107 SWL in Louisiana. We have Greg. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Brad in Amarillo, Texas. Nice to have you here. We have David's Radio Room. Nice to have you on board from Central Georgia. Pretty cold, 45 Fahrenheit down there. We have Brad is N5LUL or WA5192 SWL. We have KW1161. Nice to have you on board from Tucson, Arizona. We have Michael Langer. Nice to have you on board. And nice to have you. Nice to have you on board, my friends. We have Robert Cross saying shortwave full of radio stations tonight. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you here from Denver, Colorado, where we have finally made contact SSB last week, and we made what, 5 different bands now. So pretty cool with FT8. Pretty cool to have made those contacts. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you on board, my friend. We have what do we have? No, the military did not shoot down the balloon, by the way, guys. Don't if anybody says that, they haven't. They, unless the news has changed in the last hour, they were worried that if they shoot it down. Oh yeah, they shot it down. Okay, they shot down the other one because there was 2 now, if I'm not mistaken. There was one that they looked at. That one they left alone, but they shot down the other one, I believe, that was arriving and or is the other way around, because I think there were 2 now. There's apparently another one coming. So they say here in the local news that they shut it down near the Carolinas. So it shut down. You guys are right. It's shut down now. So what else do we have? DJW883, nice to have you on board. Ron C, nice to have you here from Saint-Hubert, Quebec. Just next to Montreal, or just southeast of Montreal, basically. And we have Keegan DXer, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. We have Greg Scher, nice to have you on board from Southern Illinois. Gregory the Catman, I like that. Demo28, nice to have you here from Dallas. J Projects, nice to have you here from San Diego. Nick Sharp, nice to have you on board. Says, anyone awaiting their NDR QSL postcard for the 24th of December should arrive soon. My postcard was mailed on 30th of January. So they're coming. Eric Cottrell, bonjour, hi. Nice to have you on board from Boston. Richard Califano, nice to have you here from Albany, New York. We have Arnie, the DX man. Nice to have you on board. And what else do we have? Mental Lunar, do you think having a CB radio is important as an emergency comms? Can receive CB traffic on my general coverage radio, but I don't have any ability to transmit on the CB bands. You know what? I don't know what happened. I don't know if you guys still have. Remember, there was this emergency. There was these emergency monitoring of Channel 9 on the CB bands. Does this still happen in some places? Here in Montreal, I remember in the late 80s through the 90s, even early 2000, there was still some monitoring done on Channel 9 for emergency. I don't know if today that still holds true. At least here in Montreal, nothing like that anymore. There used to be, there isn't anymore. Is it? I don't know up to what point a CB radio can be important in emergency communications. You know what I hear? I do hear a little bit of local stuff here, but not enough to think that if I'd call up for an emergency, somebody would be there and listening. Maybe it depends where you live. I think you should check out where you are. Do you still have these groups that monitor Channel 9 for emergency? I don't know if you guys can elaborate if in your area you still have these emergency monitoring of Channel 9 on the CB bands. You could try, if you do have a CB radio, what I would try if I would be in an emergency, probably Channel 10, which is general mobile. You know, most cars that will talk on channel 10 most of the time. I believe channel 19 or 20 are truckers. You could try those. Maybe some trucker or some car with a CB radio will hear you in one of those. But I think in many markets and many places for emergency, it's going to be a hit or miss situation. Christian Marcoux, bonjour et bienvenue. Nice to have you here from North Bay, Ontario. K6SUD, nice to have you on board. Michael, nice to have you here. We have what do we have? Let me just go down here for a second to refresh. Here we go. And now let's continue. Let me just, I kind of lost where I was. Okay, I guess I was somewhere here. So, okay. What else do we have? Shelly, nice to have you on board from South Central Pennsylvania. We have I'm just trying to catch up here. So here we go. We have Metal, Magic, and Mayhem. Nice to have you on board. Welcome aboard for the first time. Yeah, Eric, they found the groundhog dead here. So I guess it's going to be cold for the rest of the year. Patrick, nice to have you on board from Washington State. We have Rancy, as for electrical, charging cars could be why there's a jump. Yeah, partly, but I don't think it's still big enough to make much of a jump. I think a lot more has to do with it's cold and there's more and more electrical heating with the new houses and the new condos and the new everything popping up everywhere. Cities are getting bigger. But definitely it will be a problem because I know that they're saying that with the electric vehicles will make a big stress on the Hydro-Quebec here. And that's why they're talking about expanding to have more power. Because I think they're saying that by 2028, 29, if we don't expand, we're going to actually don't have enough power for everything. And I mean, it's not like Hydro-Quebec is small, too. It's pretty amazing the amount of electricity that they can generate. Skip, N2EI, nice to have you on board from New Jersey. Joe Walker, nice to have you on board from Nova Scotia. It's cold last night. Had blackouts everywhere due to transformers overloading. Wow. Just picked up my Ford radio, 990X. Sound quality makes all the difference. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. David's radio room wouldn't be something if the 40K subscribers join in the chat room. I would probably have a record show. I'm just saying hi to everybody. What else do we have? David DXer, bonjour, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien toi aussi. Nice to have you on board from just outside of Montreal. Glenn Densler, nice to have you on board from South Carolina. Greg, do get your ham license. It's going to be another world that you're going to open up. Matt says, last night I heard one of the Canadian marine utility stations on 2598 could be from Nova Scotia. It could be from Newfoundland. And there's, I think on 2598, there's also one from Quebec. And on 2749 is the other one you should monitor, 2749. That one, you'll have Nova Scotia, Quebec, and there's a few places out of there. If you heard 2598, try 2749 also. You might be surprised. Here in Montreal, they're regular. This is regular listening all year long. Danny, Shortwave and Radio DX, nice to have you on board from Yonkers, New York. Richard Chuck Kling, nice to have you here, says, have you checked out the Reticus TR110? I don't believe I have. The TR110. Let me just check out what that is all about. Reticus TR110. What is that? Oh, that is the. I have the equivalent. That is the Hanrongda. It's the same thing. This is the Hanrongda receiver, which is a bad radio, honestly. Doesn't have the bandwidth required in the VHF UHF range, so you can't really listen to much except NOAA weather radio, because anything in the VHF range, the bandwidths are not chosen well. They're just, you're stuck at white FM. Plus, um, you have overloading that is so bad when you're in a city that it doesn't receive anything, anyways. And the only place it does okay is in shortwave. It's sensitive, it receives, but SSB, forget it. It's so darn complicated to just tune something in SSB. That radio isn't worth the money that it's sold for. I mean, you can't have an $80 radio have that range, do it all. It's impossible. Um, it lacks a lot of things to really work well. Joe Walker, a question. What are your thoughts on SMA connectors? On paper, they have a fixed life cycle of about 500 mating cycles. I bought adapters for my Duo and R30, but is it overkill? I would not worry about SMA adapters much unless the radio that you're using, you're constantly removing the cables and the antennas. Um, it is also to note that depending on the radio you have, there are different qualities of SMA connectors. Like on the R30, it's pretty sturdy. I don't think you have to worry about anything. I've never had any SMA adapters break or have problems here. And some of the radios I have, I've actually screwed and unscrewed quite often the different cables. I wouldn't worry that much, honestly. Like I said, maybe if you have, often if you have if you really unplug and plug a lot of stuff. One of the biggest problems of any connector, by the way, on any portable receiver, isn't that much the type of connector, is because people don't realize how much weight they're putting on the radio. So sometimes I see people saying, well, I had this cable go into my PL330 and I broke the jack. It doesn't work anymore. Or I saw somebody with the R30 that broke his his SMA connector, and I looked at the picture, and he was using this big sturdy coax with an adapter. It was just stressing way too much the connection. You've got to be extremely careful of not putting any wires that put weight on the connectors, whatever connector it is and whatever portable radio it is. These are not like big desktop receivers with this big sturdy SO239 that even if the wire is, pulled or hangs, or it can't handle the weight. It's made for that. It's made for heavy duty. The small connectors, both the 1/8 type audio connector for the antenna jacks of the portables, the little connectors that would stand out like on the SMAs, on the RSP devices, the R30 and anything. What you need to be very careful is to have very flexible cable that when you use it, when it's there, there's no weight on it. It just hangs. There's no pressure. That is the most important thing, way more than worrying about the wear and tear of an SMA connector. My RSPDX, of course, has SMA connectors. It has a BNC on it. I've screwed and unscrewed, I don't know how many times, the cable on it, but I do use, small lightweight cable with the SMA connector, it doesn't put strain or pressure on the connector. That is where you need to be careful much more. Matt says that he gets Australian utility stations pretty well in the morning on 6 megahertz frequency. Sometimes I can get them on 8, but not nearly as dependably. That's worth looking at again. So lots of stuff: military, marine, aeronautical. Bob from Ottawa, nice to have you here. Talking of solar activity, the month of January, the solar activity was so high that we've reached a average sunspot number that was almost as high as the peak of the last solar cycle. So what we lived through in January was what it looked like at the peak of solar cycle 24. If we consider that technically solar cycle 25 is supposed to peak in 2024, 2025, I think we're in for a pretty big solar cycle compared to the last one, which kind of tells us that the predictions that they had where the solar cycle would not be as big as 20, would be pretty much the same as 24, seem to be wrong. What else do we have? Randy, nice to have you here. Matt, I think FT8 on 5 bands. I know we still need 80 meters. I think 17 and 15, maybe 12. Yeah, there is the work bands are where we're not on the work bands, and except for the 30 meters and the 60. We had what, 60? And so we're missing 80. We're missing, I think, 17, 12, and 15. I think that you're pretty right. Those are the ones we're missing. We'll have to work on that and have them. 80. I'm sure we can easily make it. It was just conditions were just not right for it last time. But I've made 80 meter contacts to up to California. Last night I made 80 meter. I made 3 or 4 80 meter contacts with Europe. So it's just getting the proper propagation from your area to mine, and it's going to work. Dirk Boone, been thinking about getting a classic old 80s sharp tape deck, Ghetto Blaster, relive my teen years. Yeah, if you get I would like to have one, but a real one from the 80s, not the stuff they get out today, which is not at all the quality and what it was, but having one really well maintained Ghetto Blaster from the 80s with a cassette deck and everything, I'd find that fun to have, actually. And if it has shortwave, even more. Scott, KC2C80, nice to have you on board from North Boston, New York. So, what else do we have? Big Fish, nice to have you on board. Yeah, I saw something about a second balloon. No problem. Have a good cleanup. Have a good cleanup of the car. Autism Radios and More channel, nice to have you here. Bowman's, what's your thoughts about the Sony Earth Orbiter? Sony Earth Orbiter. Let me just check that out. What is the Sony Earth Orbiter? Oh, wow. These are nice radios. Look at that. Yeah, there's different models still, but wow, these are nice. These are kind of nice. If you get some for a decent price, don't pay a lot. I don't pay a lot for old radios. People will probably call me very cheap when it comes to old radios because they're gonna say, well, I've got this Kenwood R1000. I would let it go for 400. Forget it. It's not worth more than $100. I'm sorry. And that's my take on it. It's an old radio. There's way too much hype put on. Oh yeah, no, but these are vintage. No, they're not. Things like Kenwood R1000s, for example, they're not vintage. There's so many of them out there. They shouldn't be worth more than $100. It's the way it is. But they're much more expensive than that when you look at it. But don't pay too much for one. But if you have one for a decent price, these old radios are kind of fun. Probably good, probably nice. No problem, Anthony. Happy to be there. 45 unit. Nice to have you on board from Connecticut. And yeah, I don't know what kind of radio device they have in that balloon. I wonder what actually, first of all, what actually was it doing? That is, of course, the first question. And I don't even know if they'll find anything. If they shot it, maybe they shot it because I remember I saw one first article that they didn't shoot it down while it was on the U.S. territory because they were afraid that debris would fall on people and houses. So maybe they shot it over the ocean, next to the Carolinas, which means that maybe the debris fell in the ocean and they'll never recover it. We don't know. Jor Hada, nice to have you here from Germany. Francis Moore, nice to have you here from the UK. We have, we have, we're coming down here. So Francis Moore, we have. Yeah, I got it too here. So according to local news, it was shut down. Forget your life. Can you talk about all this 3Y0J pirates? Yeah, it's kind of that made me. So, for those that don't know, there's an expedition. They have arrived at Bouvet Island. Bouvet Island is, if you look at the map here, okay, Bouvet Island is like somewhere here, right smack in the middle of nowhere, not that far from Antarctica, just like South Atlantic Ocean, something like that. It's a tiny island that is owned by Norway, and they have been so that the expedition has been trying to get there many times over the last couple of years. They have not been able. The weather here is, a disaster. It's always bad weather. The ocean isn't very, very nice. And every time they went in the past, they weren't able to get to the island. It was just too nasty. Now they have, according to their website, they have been able to get on the island. Now, there was an update today. The weather is bad, it's cold, it's rainy. They're not going to be able to set up like they thought they would. But in the next few days, look for any stations on the handbands that will be the 3 Yankee 0 Juliet, 3Y0J. This is Bouvet Island, the expedition. Now, like Forget Your Life saying, if you go on the clusters, there's tons of people that are making themselves pass for 3Y0J, which is not true. And there's even some last December. So these are fake. And that made me wonder how the hell we're going to know we're contacting the real one or the fake one is what scares me now about that DXpedition. So we're gonna see, but I don't know why the hell are you pretending to be a ham station? You're not. I don't get that. One of the comments in the clusters was, "Well, I've got directional antennas. That signal ain't coming from that area." And a lot of people are putting fake, 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 fake. So the only way that you can be sure is go on the Bouvet Island DXpedition website where they have the latest news. So I'm going to put the website in the chat room here. So this is the DXpedition website. Beautiful website too with the ocean waves that you see. So Bouvet Island, latest news. It says so. The latest news that they have. Let's see here. What do they have? Anything about what's happening? So they're going to be there for. They want to be there for like 22 days. Anything new here? Let me just check here our projects. Bouvet Island, boat, the team. So they are there because they have a GPS that you can actually check, and the boat is actually next to the island. The island is mostly ice and snow, basically there. Um, I remember I saw something about some news though. So, anyways, within the next days, they should be on. They want to do, I don't know if they're still planning that. They want to do CW, Morse code, SSB voice, and FT8. So I don't know which ones are going to. Anyways, it's kind of weird. Those pirates that pretend to be 3Y0J, I don't get it. It's kind of weird, honestly. Richard Wagner was called Help Channel 9. Yeah, here in Montreal, it was called something else. I don't remember the exact name of the that they were giving it back then. Master Player says CNN showing the video when it was shot down. What else do we have? Dirk Boone in the UK back in the 80s was a group called React. That was the group, React. React. That's what we had here in Montreal, React. With Channel 9. With Channel 9. What happened to sound last week? Well, when I transmitted on 20 meters, it seems that, the problem with the console is it has very long wires connected to it. So, like the audio cables that go from the console to the radios, they're like, 20 feet long. So they act like antennas. And my console here is extremely sensitive to everything, to transmissions from my transceiver. So it didn't matter when we were on like 12 or 15 meters. It wasn't a problem. But there's a sensitive point, it seems, on 20 meters. So what happened is the console on 20 meters, when I transmitted, the console stopped working because of my transmission. The problem is that the only way to restart the audio is to completely restart a new stream. So I wasn't able to get back. So I need to also check for maybe setting up differently so that I can maybe set up a way that I can easily get audio back when something happens. Also, I'm gonna check that out. So it's not there anymore. I was listening to Voice of America earlier on the 15580. So 45 units. CB Channel 9 is like the minor league to Super Bowl 6. No emergency traffic heard. The word is, if you need help, try 19 truckers and travel. Eric Cottrell, React is one group in the US that used to monitor for emergency. Yeah. So that doesn't do that. They don't do that anymore. Yeah. Because they used to, even my Navajo base station, the TRC 432, has a channel 9, channel 19 switch, which is, I think it says emergency on it, which shows you that was kind of thought of as emergency channels when it arrived. But today I don't think that, if you want to have a CB radio, I got the Uniden SSB 980, which is kind of cool. But honestly, if you want a CB radio, that's mostly because you want a CB radio. I don't think today, if by having a CB radio necessarily will be something, apart from the fact that might be cool to have one. There's not that much activity in many markets. I did take out my little portable here the other day. This Radio Shack, the TRC. What is this? The TRC 234. because here we had a lot of snow in January, and what happens in radio communications with the snow is that the city itself has its frequencies in the VHF, UHF, and all the trucks, the snow removal, the snow plow, and so on. But the trucks that gather the snow and go dump it, these trucks, they're standard trucks from private companies. So these guys all have CB radios in their trucks, and they actually find where the snow blower is by just calling on frequencies like, where's the snowblower? And the other truckers will say, oh, the snowblower is now on this street. So there's a lot of activity on the CB channels when the snow removal is going on. And in January, we had snow removal every week because we had too much snow. So there's a lot of activity. And the last one I was monitoring with this little portable that I used. Kind of cool. This is a 40 channel, little 40 channel, 4 watts portable CB. This TRC 234, I actually had for very cheap. When this came out in the catalog, I remember it was $239 or something like that, which I thought was way too expensive for that little portable here. And when I went to the Radio Shack, well, actually, I went to the shopping center one day, and I guess this is 1992, 93 ish. They had like these table specials. They would always put a big table in front of the store, and that was like the dirt cheap deals of what's on the table is what you get, and they would tell you some of it was returned and broken or whatever. So this one was broken. The antenna connector disconnected from the inside. So maybe somebody put too much pressure on it. So when I looked at it, the guy said, well, the antenna connector is broken. And he said it's probably just a connection, because he says when you jiggle it, sometimes you're able to have a connection. So I said, okay. So instead of $239, I paid $50 for it. So I thought, $50, I'm going to open this thing and I'm probably going to fix it. And that's what happened. I opened it up. What happened is that the plastics holding the socket were broken. So I fixed the connection and I put tons and tons of hot glue to just hold it in. And it works fine now. So I got it for $50 instead of $239, which $50 was more reasonable. So this is 4 watts, 40 channel. Had this for we're in 2023. Probably had this for 30 years now. Bought this in somewhere in the 90s, early 90s, I think. It was in a Radio Shack catalog at the day, and I remember looking at it saying, "Oh, I'd like to have that, but it's too expensive." Well, for $50 now, that was okay. So I was listening to the snow removal trucks. It's kind of fun. Harold Anderson, nice to have you here from Norway, Oslo, Norway, LB1NH. I had two or three contacts with Norway this morning on 10 meters. 10 meters was open, and I got Hawaii 2 times last night on 30 meters. It's pretty cool also. Miji, nice to have you on board. Lex 2006, nice to have you here. Kevin, nice to have you on board. The State PD Monitor, Channel 9 in New Jersey. 18 is General Com for truckers. Mostly dead because most drivers just use Sol and Waze app. Yeah, it's not like it used, because a lot of the traffic back then was to kind of check out what's the what's the conditions on the road and stuff like that. Definitely. So he says the state police department monitors Channel 9 in New Jersey. So this is kind of interesting, because here there's nothing. Here, Channel 9, there's nothing anymore. Laurette Netani. Bonjour, bienvenue. Nice to have you on board. et bienvenue. C'est toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous, Lorette. Tristan, nice to have you on board with the minus 30 wind chill. The wind chill here reached like minus 45 last night. It was crazy. I went to the grocery store. The closest one here is what, 15 minutes walking distance? Dang. That was the longest 15 minutes I had in a long time. Dave Conti, nice to have you here from the Bronx. We have Glenn Danzler, my adult niece, and one of her sons claim to have seen the balloon with astronomical binoculars. Maybe. Who knows? It was pretty big, so I don't know. Maybe. Lex, it's +5 in Edmonton, Alberta. Matt's saying am I buffering? Eric Cottrell, Aerial Quebec has an extensive radio communications network. It is a P25 trunk system, province-wide on VHF, and in the Montreal area, 800 megahertz. So, is it encrypted or not? I should check that out. Can I use the R30 to listen to that, Eric? Just out of curiosity. What else do we have? So after a refresh, seems okay. Tarek, nice to have you here from Cairo, Egypt. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you on board from Greenfield Park, Quebec, where Sheldon is working hard on completing the February messenger. Francis Moore, Joe bought the Wellbrook flexible mag loop that comes without a loop for 3 meters of LMR 400 coax to form a single or double loop arriving next week. Cool. Have fun playing with that. It's part of the fun. Antennas are part of the fun of radio. Randy, 11860. Yeah, it's 11860. It's Radio Marti comes from the East Coast and directed to Cuba. Papier écriture. Wellbrook antennas are superb. I have an ALA 100M and it works excellent. Cool. Sheldon says the February 2023 CIDX messenger should be ready sent out to members later today or tomorrow. So cool. What else do we have? Dwayne, nice to have you here. What else do we have? So VA3JPX, James, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Always nice to have you on board. Oh, the second balloon is down in Latin America. Okay, Eric. I thought it was also coming over the US. So thanks for the info. David's radio room still got his ghetto blaster from the 80s, has 2 cassette decks, and does get shortwave. Cool. David C. Stern says, I hate paying the vintage tax. Yeah, me too. I don't pay for that. I already paid a little too much for a Panasonic RFB 300 just because I, wanted to have the same radio when I was a teenager, but definitely not worth much of a price. I can tell you that. What else do we have? Go down. Here we go. The RF Noob discovered recently your channel. Love it. Thanks. Cool. Welcome aboard, my friend. Artak Ambarian, always follow and love your YouTube channel. I need some help in relation to reception in an urban area with condos that have iron and rebars guide to set up a shortwave antenna. Yeah, that is the difficult one. The best thing, if it's noisy too, is get something like an MLA30, which is a cheap, inexpensive magnetic loop, and you can try that in a window. Might actually be surprising. A lot of people do it and it seems to work well, especially if it's impossible for you to put an outdoor antenna. Um, what else do we have? RJ Dakota says, I had a really nice Toshiba cassette boombox with a few shortwave bands on it. It was small but awesome. The shortwave bands worked really well also. Like to listen to Radio Australia on it. You know, I told the story before, but I I when we would go up north to the shack where my dad had constructed the shack in La Concepcion, which is near Mont Tremblant. Um, so there was no electricity there. We were all everything was in battery operated, or we had gas lamps and stuff like that. And the one of my friends that would come over sometimes would come over on the weekend, but what happened is he had family and friends around that area. So many weekends, so some weekends he would come over, spend a weekend, but some weekends it was, just called me up and say, well, I'm going to see my friends. Do you want to lift? I'm gonna, drop you at the shack, and I'll get you when I come back Sunday night. And it was like, yeah, and I'd spend a weekend alone there. But he always left his big boombox. He had a big, I think it was what brand was it? I don't remember what brand it was, but it was a really huge boombox, and it really sounded amazing. And so when we would go there, he would leave his boombox there. He'd say, "Hey, you want a boombox? You'll be able to listen to music." And of course, I had my shortwave radios, but I'd say, "Yeah, sure." And his boombox had shortwave on it, and of course, my curiosity was much more, "Let's see what that thing can do on shortwave rather than listen to music." And I remember Saturday nights listening most of the time, listening to HCJB DX Party Line there with the boombox. So that was the fun of it, and it received decently well for what it was, and then analog boombox, and didn't drift that much. So you could put it on on the station you're listening to, and you wouldn't have to readjust too often to stay on the frequency. What else do we have? What else do we have? Joe Walker, stop listening to that trash. Joe Hatter, wonder how China could get a balloon to U.S. driven by winds and then hovering right above a military installation. Well, it wasn't kind of hovering above; it was just slowly going through with the winds. It's the same. It's the same thing as the Google's balloon experiment, where they wanted to bring the internet over um, when they were bringing internet with balloons. What they do actually is it's something that they've tested a lot. They'll put a balloon up, and if you want to put the balloon and have it go in a specific area, hover over a specific place. What they do is they just look at the weather patterns and the winds, the high altitude winds, and what they could do is simply move the balloon up and down to go to the different wind patterns. And so they could pretty much have a balloon stay almost steady just by having it move up and down into the different wind patterns of the atmosphere. And so Google used that with hundreds and hundreds of balloon with that experiment to try to bring internet access. I thought it was a cool experiment because one of the things they wanted to do with it is if an area has a disaster, you need quick internet access. You just launch a bunch of balloons with internet capability and have them hover over an area. But I think Google abandoned that project. So probably the same thing is just using a balloon and having it follow the weather patterns, um, so that it can actually go exactly where you want it to go, basically. Andy New, how do you think a radio like H501X would compare to the Grundig 650 or Sony 2001D? For me, the H501X is as good as these radios. I mean, these radios are great. And if you have a Sony 2001D or a Sony 2010, same model, depending where you got it, they are great radios, and you probably do not need a new radio if you got a Sony like that. But for me, in performance, I bet you that these radios, the H501X is as good as these radios. The only thing the Sony would probably do better is its synchronous detection. But for the rest, for receive, I don't think there would be a difference. You know, I compare a lot of my portables here with my Yaesu FTDX10. You know, when I see somebody come up to me and says, "Well, you know, my $1,000 transceiver beats the crap out of these, Chinese portables and blah blah," I ain't seeing that with a Yaesu FTDX10. So when somebody comes up to me and says, "Well, you should get a really expensive, tabletop radio. It would be much better." Look, I have a Icom ICR 500, Kenwood R5000, now a Yaesu FTDX10. They're great. They have features that do enhance some of the reception, like they'll have EGC, which is definitely something nice to have on a radio, especially in single sideband. So they'll make it easier for some types of listening. The Yaesu has the digital noise reduction, which in some cases is pretty impressive. But overall, as radios, just standard radios, there's nothing I get on my Yaesu that I will not hear on my Texan. It's something that people got to take out of their minds. Um, People that only have expensive radios think that those portables that we have aren't as capable. Well, they are, and they are surprisingly sensitive and good today. We've got to be careful. What makes those tabletops better, like I said, is the add of features you don't see on a portable. So, the digital noise reduction, the AGC, and you'll have things like IF shift and all sorts of little things like that will often add a possibility of making a reception better, making it easier to hear. But stop thinking that your $1,000 radio receives something that you don't hear on an H501X and even on a PL330. The radios today have reached a sensitivity peak, both on the portable side and on the expensive side, that makes them all amazing and receive. Like I said, the expensive side adds the bells and whistles that can take a signal, bring it up into maybe a clearer listening experience, and making that's where the difference is, not in sensitivity. In sensitivity, they're all pretty much maxed out for the most part. What else do we have? Do we have fast load? Only the real guys can actually confirm on Logbook of the World or QRZ. Nice to have you here, fast load from Montreal. Mr. C's Garage, nice to have you on board. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. What else do we have? KW1161, my first was a Sanyo, and the Aiwa, both units cassette player died. Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is a lot of oh, okay, thanks Miki for the link. So the Facebook group is much more up to date. Cool. So I'm gonna check it out here. Bouvet, yeah, okay, there we go. That's good. 4 team members have spent 4 days on the island under difficult conditions. All team members are now back on the vessel and everyone is safe. Bouvet has proved to be a difficult destination to activate, and the team is now adjusting our plans before we return to the island. The weather forecast for the weekend indicates a storm with 60-knot winds Sunday, Monday. Depending on the storm, we will assess the situation and go off onshore when conditions are good. This will not be a full-scale operation as planned, but a smaller setup. We have a good overview of the camp and the possibilities, and will attempt to continue building the camp. We have infrastructure on the island, including access to the camp. We will send the next update later. So they're trying, but looks like a tough one. Man, that island, look at that. The pictures they have there are freaking amazing. Oh, man. They're on the shore, and you see all these big ice banks on the side. Wow. Crazy. Crazy. So I guess they'll try to get activated, as soon as possible. That would be the case. So thanks. I'm going to follow that, Mickey. What else do we have? Mr. Steve's Garage, my antivirus flags that link as suspicious. Yes, that's because antivirus are crappy at detecting what's good or not. That's what happens when you use third-party antivirus. They just detect all sorts of crappy things like that, say it's no good when it's perfectly correct. That's why I never use any of those and never pay for an antivirus, which is useless. Make sharp high altitude balloon less than UK balloon signals on 434 megahertz USB from anywhere in the world. And yeah, they have the pictures are great, just amazing. Fast load. It's not that I have that much RF in the shack. Fast load. I think it's more in the fact that because I don't have anything that does anything special. I have a lot of equipment here. I can even listen to most of my stuff on the MLA30 without too much. I see a desensitization because I'm transmitting from the antenna in the back, but it often I can still listen to whatever I'm listening to. It's really because I think the console wires are so long, with the cables being 20, 30 feet long, that it acts as big giant antennas and amplifies all the RF that's coming in. Because I don't really have that much RF in the shack. I've been checking it out a lot, and it's pretty good in general. I think it has to do with the cabling being too long. So the console becomes like a radio. Skip array and 2EI. Many React groups in the US have gone over to GMRS, FRS. So really, do you have some specific channels on the GMRS and FRS there for React? That's kind of interesting. I know you guys there in the US is very different because the FRS GMRS is licensed in the US. Here in Canada, it's like CB. There's no licensing. So, and I know it's very different than what you can do there. You can even have repeaters. So do you have a specific channel on GMRS, FRS, out of curiosity? Talking about that, I always keep, when I actually work on stuff here, I keep my Yaesu on FT8 on 6 meters, 50313. And I just leave it on, and I do other stuff. And I kind of look at if anything happens on 6 meters. And it's funny because yesterday I missed it. There's a guy from Vermont called CQ 3 or 4 times, FT8, and it was probably line of sight. I was probably receiving a signal directly. I missed it because I wanted to. It's like, oh man, if you'd call CQ, if I had seen that, I would have answered back the call. Zero Gluten 56, nice to have you here. Bill B17, nice to have you here. Channel 38, Lower Sideman has been super active in the mornings here in Maryland. Frequently here, Ireland, Scotland, UK, London. Yep, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Sorry, guys. So what else do we have? What else do we have? What else do we have? Yeah, that was good. A quarter of the price. That was okay. You know, $50 was okay, but 239 was like, yeah, come on, please. Yeah, I got it here. It's not far. It's somewhere here in the. I use that one also regularly to listen to stuff fast load. I like it because the antenna is already in it, so you just extend the antenna. That one has a B and C connector, and the biggest problem is I couldn't find my telescopic antenna. I don't know where it is. So I was like, yeah, okay. I put the little, rubber decky antenna, which is really not what goes on that thing. And I finally put it on the multi-coupler, so it worked. I listened to the trucks on the MLA 30. Just got to be careful not to transmit to blow up not to blow up my antenna, the multi-coupler. But that one works well too. The TRC. What was it? The one that you sold me $20? TRC 216, 214, something like that. Which is nice. It's nice 40 channel CB also. Pretty nice, honestly. That's in the price range, $20. Yeah, that's perfect. What else do we have? And the new 18650 battery doesn't seem to charge in my H501X. It should. Make sure that you charge it with a proper charger. If you plug it on your laptop, stuff like that, it might not charge well. Make sure that you use a proper adapter for that USB cable if you charge it inside the radio, because it should charge. And make sure that when you charge, that the back, have the switch for the two batteries. Make sure that your switch is on the battery you want to charge. Because if it's not on the battery you're going to charge, it's not going to charge. You have to switch it from one battery to the other. Very important. And anyways, any of these radios you guys have with 18650s and so on, get yourself an external charger for these batteries and get yourself more 18650. Like that, you'll have enough batteries. They're not expensive. And I got a charger that charges AAA, double A's. It charges 18650s, 18. Many of these, there's like similar batteries that look alike on the 18650 and different numbers like that. They charge all of them. The charger detects what battery you put in automatically. Get yourself an external charger, which is so much better on any case. Even if it's a radio with AA batteries, you're better off with an external charger. Especially since the radios themselves, the charger is so darn slow. Skip, lots of activity on 10 this morning. Yep, I had a lot of stuff. I had a few contacts with Norway this morning. And Taneves, what do you think will be 5G impact on classic radio? Pretty much nothing. It's just, different frequency ranges. It won't impact differently than when we have, in standard transmissions, the 4G, 3G services we had. I don't think there'll be any impact personally. Simon Templar, been talking a little bit on channel 35 and 38 lower sideband on my unit in BC 980 SSB. I've set it as a base with a A99 Antron. Cool. I need to set up. I want to try to set up my CB my CB properly, so it always kind of works. Since the 980 SSB is small, I was actually thinking of setting it up. So in the kitchen, that's where I have most of my access to the antennas. In the kitchen, I have a place where I store food, but there's a lot of space in it. And I was thinking, well, it could be kind of, I could put it in there and just leave it there. And when I want to use it, it's there. So Simon Templar, they popped it a little bit ago over the ocean. Yeah, that's what, because over the territory, they were afraid that some parts would fall on people or houses or stuff, buildings. Gary 24 fan, nice to have you on board from Fort Fairfield, Maine. And you had temperatures that looked like here in Montreal last night. Pretty much the same ones. IS0IYM Giuseppe, nice to have you on board from Italy. Joe Walker, R30 will work if not encrypted, and you put in all of the voice channels. Works just as good as the trunking. Otherwise, use DSD Plus. I need to check that out. I've never checked DSD Plus. I really need to check that out. Nice to have you here from Sardinia, my friend Giuseppe. Had a lot of contacts with hams in Italy in the last few weeks. Tristan, been away from Shortwave for around a month. Just a little break. Did some listening today, man. I love my 330. Safe to say it's the best radio below a PL 880 and PL 990. Oh yeah, it is definitely for the price. You got a winner here. That's for sure. That's definitely the case. Hello there, my friend from Greece. Nice to have you on board. What do we have? Kevin, I noticed the new C.Crane Skywave 2 is getting good reviews. Supposedly a new speaker along with a real antenna jack. We'll try to find a review video after the show. Yeah, I would not personally. I'm not buying that. I find it too expensive for what it is. I'm very careful with the reviews because a lot of reviewers, because it's C.Crane, are kind of C.Crane addicted. I'll call it like that. I have seen a few outside reviews, not reviews, but comments that are like, well, it's the same as the Skywave SSB. It's just slightly improved speaker, and they put an antenna jack, and what a lot of comments are all about is that's what the Skywave SSB should have been. And the other thing is, I cannot accept that an expensive portable radio like that, is muting on tuning. I can't. I will accept that it mutes on tuning if you paid $75 for it. But when a radio here in Canada, that C.Crane Skywave SSB2 comes at 290 Canadian dollars. 290 Canadian dollars, that thing is not worth that. And it's not even worth the price that it's sold for, in my opinion. That's my take on it. And there's way better radios out there than that, including, if I'd pay that, I'd buy another Texan H501X. Same price, much better radio. All I gotta say. But that's my take. Eric Cottrell sends the link to the Hydro-Quebec P25 Phase 1. Yeah, I need to check that out. So it's a P25 hybrid system. So here's all the frequencies and stuff. So I'm going to check that out. I'm going to actually do this. Send to my devices. So that's going to be something to look at. So thanks for the frequency list also. Eric, Art, nice to have you here from New Jersey, K2ADC. Danny Shortwave Radio DX. My first shortwave listening was my older brother's JVC boombox back in '77. Artax will try the MLA 30. Yeah, I think that could be probably will be the best that you could do. Robert Cross. Well, you're in the 40-meter ham band, and 7012.9 or 7012 in that area is all Morse code. It's the 40-meter band Morse code band, anywhere from 7,000 to 7,060-ish. You'll have a lot of Morse code in there. It's the 40-meter amateur band. So Greg thinking about getting the a handheld CB radio. Yeah, don't pay a lot for that though. It's not worth it in many markets to have to pay for like a brand new. If you get something cheap, like $20, like Fast Load had, or that's okay, but don't pay a lot for a portable CB. Keegan DXter says my first shortwave listening was on my dad's Alicrafters SX62 and ICOM IC706. Carrie Westbrook. The 80s won a stereo from America's Top 10 with Casey Kasem. Used to listen to WRNO Worldwide, the Rock of the World. Yeah, remember that. Pretty cool. No problem. This is Jordan Hader from Germany. What else do we have? Nice to have you here, Glenn, from Milwaukee. We have, let me just, Radio Bunker, nice setup, thank you. Creme Brûlée, nice to have you here from West Sussex, UK. Robert Cross, lots of vintage radios work really well when they get restored perfectly. Oh yeah, some of these radios were actually very good in the day. That definitely is the case. Robert Varner, nice to have you here. What else do we have? I think I'm pretty much reached close to the bottom. Yeah, I'm only a few minutes away, so let's Chris C, nice to have you here. Glenn Zeckman, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Andy New, Mike Ziegler G90, great all-rounder. Yeah, looks like a pretty good transceiver there. Simon, I now have an FT65. I caved and bought one, like it too. Oh, it's great. It's amazing. One of the things that I find amazing that FT65 is when I listen to the International Space Station repeater, is how well tuned the antenna is. I compare the reception with all the other, like, my ICOM ICR 30, 20, or my other scanner radios from, Realistic Radio Shack scanners. And that's where you see that antenna and that FT65 are tuned really well. The signal from the repeater on the download of on the UHF download is much stronger on the FT65 than all of the other portables I got, scanner radios. It's crazy and works. The FT65 is amazing, honestly. Thank you again for that gift when I got my ham license, because wow, it is great little transceiver there. VHF UHF transceiver. So I'm sure you're happy with it. I'm sure you like it. Chris says, I see Anonco's eBay store is empty. No products in US only. Anything going on we should know about? I've not checked it out on eBay. Because I mean, here in North America, we can go through the Anonco website. But maybe they just want us to go directly through their online store rather than going through the through eBay. Because I haven't checked. Every time I go through the I go direct on the Anonco website. So I don't know. Daniel Mark LeBlanc, nice to have you here from the Shediac River, New Brunswick. Pedro, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Sunwave, nice to have you on board. Just got an ATS 20 Plus. What else do we have? Daniel Mark LeBlanc, I'm hearing a lot of talk on CBs lately. I haven't got one, and I'm not planning on buying one. Is CB on a comeback? No. What you're hearing is simple, is that because of the high solar activity, you're hearing all the skip. Basically, when solar activity was at the minimum, it was very quiet because unless we had sporadic E-skip or the temporary higher solar activity, the bands were pretty quiet because locally on most places, the CB bands are kind of really quiet. Now what you're hearing is mostly the fact that with high solar activity, all day long you're hearing a skip from everywhere. So it looks like the CB is on a comeback, but it's not. Actually, it's now because propagation makes you hear a lot more from the CBers far away in the US, for example. It's mostly that. Because there's I don't see any CB radio comeback personally. Hadim Ablakovic, nice to have you here from Wisconsin. Killer61, you're a true radio person. I store my food among my antennas in my kitchen. So where's the CB radio? Oh, it's right next to the crackers and just above the pasta. Shelly, where do you prefer to get an extra battery for XH Data D808? It's one of those weird ones, and I've never had to get one before. So the battery is called an 18650, 18650. There's one little thing to be careful when you buy one. Some have that button top, some don't. The XH Data requires the one with the button top. No panic. If you order the wrong one, you could always put a little piece of aluminum foil to create the missing button top, and it's going to work. But multiple places. The 18650 is actually a very common battery. If you have any vape stores near where you live, you can buy 18650 batteries there, because the e-cigarettes, most of them work on an 18650. So you can actually get some in a vape store, or you can buy them. I bought them on eBay. Just be careful, because the biggest problem, not on eBay, on Amazon, sorry. Be careful, because the biggest problem is there's these sellers that pretend that their batteries have 6,000 milliamps. It can't. A 18650 does not have 6,000 milliamps. The highest capacity an 18650 can have is 3,500 milliamps. Doesn't go higher than that. If you got a 4,000, a 5,000, a 6,000 milliamp that's printed on it, it's fake. So just be careful to have the proper ones and the good ones. But you can get them on Amazon. You can get them, like I said, vape stores will have them. They're pretty easy to find in general. So get a few extras. It's like that. You'll have, if you do go somewhere that there's no power, no charging capability, you'll be able to to have a couple that are handy to replace. Another thing also that I tell people all the time, because I get people saying, well, if I go somewhere, how could I keep my radio charging if, where I go camping and stuff like that? Buy yourself those battery packs to charge the cell phones. Those battery packs, they will recharge your radios 7 or 8 times before the battery goes dead. And so you'll have enough charging power for days with radios like an XH Data D808. You just remember to bring the battery pack and the cable, and that's all. And it's pretty cool. Sheila LaSalle from Belleville, Ontario, Canada. Nice to have you on board. Dennis, nice to have you on board. K2DCD. Any shortwave overpriced C.Crane radio? No, thank you. I love my XH Data. Yeah. I would buy an XH Data before one of those C.Cranes. So, it's kind of, no RDS on FM, where you do have RDS on the XH Data. I find those particularly expensive for nothing. They work. They work well in what they do. It's just that they're overpriced. That's all. Sunwaves is happy with his Skywave SSB, and that's the important thing. For the rest, it does what you want. That's what's important. I would not, I got mine because it was given to me, but I would not have, personally, I would not have purchased a C.Crane. Not at the price they're sold for. James Binder, nice to have you here. Hey Dame says passed his tech exam today. Now shopping for an antenna base for his new FT710. So pretty cool. Congratulations, my friend. Gustav Bator, what do you recommend that covers it all? Greetings from Poland. And what do you mean by from Poland and London, Ontario at the same time? What do you mean by covers it all? If you're talking about the shortwave bands, most portables today are general coverage and cover everything with SSB. If you're talking about wideband, today I would go more into an SDR. For wideband, like an SDR play device, you've got coverage from 10 kilohertz all the way up to 2 gigahertz. That covers it all. And easy setup. What else do we have? What else do we have? Just check it out here. What else do we have? Kevin, the one place I can think of where CB radio is awesome is if you live or get close enough to a truck stop. Local businesses and lizards soliciting their wares along with driver banter. Yeah. So, what else do we have? Sunwave, it has 2 ports in the back, one for PC download, the other charge it. I want to update its firmware. Daniel Marc LeBlanc, did you ever listen to a live Meteor shower on FM? No, I've never tried something like that. Using Meteor scatter to get signals is something that I've never really tried. And that could be some interesting experiment, though, to try. I need to check it out. Metalunar can hear people in Texas perfectly clear on the CB skip. And Connecticut, never hear who they're talking to. Yeah, well, that's like listening to ham radio bands. The ham radio bands, you don't always, especially in the higher frequencies, on frequencies at 11 meters, 10 meters, the skip distance is pretty high, pretty long. So it happens very often. You'll hear only one side of the conversation. Michael, all our old Brownie Cub radios. I don't know. Skip into EI uses a Romos battery pack, 20,000 milliamp hour. Or okay. Jordan Hatter says 18650 batteries are available with and without a protection circuit. What does the D808 need? Well, both will work. They're only the only problem with or without the protection circuit is that sometimes the battery's length is slightly longer. The ones that have the protection circuit might be a little longer. In some radios, they might be pretty tight to get in. But in in egg stage data like the D808, I mean, there's a spring for the entry. So with or without, you know, technically the ones with protection is nice because it means that the battery should technically never blow up in your face in case of disaster, compared to a non-protected one. But our text is for 18650 charging. There should be also solar chargers. Randy says crazy CB on 27025. Yeah, the Super Bowl channel. Yeah, Keegan DXer. That's we hear that often. They're like bye bye bye. Ooked 911. Nice to have you on board. Talking of last week, I was talking about a guy that was interfering on the 12-meter band with FT8. He was talking over an FT8 frequency, calling everybody dumb. And I've heard the same, and maybe it's the same guy, but I've heard the same thing happen on, I think it was on 15 meters this week. So I don't know if it's the same guy that's trying to interfere and is not happy people are doing FT8 or whatever. Paul Steckler, I know you didn't like it, but I bought a CC Radio 3. It's got a weird problem about once a week. The volume drops about 80%, slowly recovers over the next minute. If it's like the 2, because what I've heard is that it's pretty much the same design as the 2 inside. It has the C.Crane has a very weird, it's a DSP radio. It has a very weird way of recovering from weak to stronger signals. This is what makes me unhappy and not that fond of the CC Radio 2 and 3. And probably what happens is that you're listening to something and that it's as if there's kind of a weird AGC bug. And what you have that happens from time to time is that the AGC for some reason has gotten to zero, and it takes that time to recover back to the level it was. I have noticed one thing when my CC radio, and that's by accident, when my CC radio 2 was in the kitchen. This is very close to my infed antenna. As when we're in the kitchen, we're getting closer. I noticed that if the radio's on medium wave, for example, and I would transmit on the transceiver, it overloads, and it does take a minute for that slope to bring back the level of listening to where it was. It's some kind of funky, weird way of the circuit working, the circuit inside it. It's very bizarre. So it's okay. I'm not a big fan. It's okay. Nothing really more than that. I'm not impressed. And I've been meaning to actually do more videos with it for medium wave and FM listening, and also checking it with the Ethon Elite that I have here. That also is meant for AM, FM also. But there's one thing that it does have that is nice is that it does have a. If you listen to FM, has a pretty darn good audio for listening to music, for example, on an FM station. um, 911. I've been having fun with a tennis ball launcher and putting up some antennas. Got the cross country wireless loop, 87 feet up. That's good. Sonoy says speaker is big inside the ATS 20. It covers the entire top lid. Yeah, well, the speakers are big. Like even on the ATS 25, that's a pretty big speaker too. Forget Your Life says monitoring a CB is good to know if at 10 meters open. Definitely. Dennis Mark says, listen to the Leonid meteor shower on a cloudy night back November 18, 2009. With the Moncton Amateur Radio Club. Our astronomy club was invited. It was pretty interesting. It sounds like a burst of static. Really cool. And there are, modes where you can, because when these meteors actually strike the atmosphere, the ionization sometimes lasts a few seconds, and it is enough for a very, very quick contact that could happen between two amateur stations. Fast load. People complain about FT8 or computer literacy. You got to be careful. Let's just put it that I think the biggest problem, because there's different. If you give me a choice, I prefer voice contact with somebody. For the same contact, for example, that Congo station that I had a couple of months back, I made both the contact in voice SSB and in FT8. I mean, it's cool, but I'm prouder of the SSB voice one than the FT8. After a while, the FT8, you get to a point where you're kind of, okay, I made the contact with that. There's like no thrill in it. But apart from that, the the biggest problem, I think amateur radio has always had that problem. Everything that is to do with everything that is to do with changes and new things coming in the amateur field, there's always a bunch of hams that are not happy or not into it. You got to accept that it's a diversity world and we're advancing in technology. There'll always be, in 10 years from now, we're probably not even going to be an FT8 anymore. There's going to be some new thing and people are going to be on, AB4K, and they're going to be like, oh, AB4K is just what you need. Yeah. Okay. That's called advancements in technology, and amateur radio is at the forefront of that. Amateur radio, a lot of what was invented amateur radio is the reason why for a lot of the regular technologies that we use today. Without amateur radio first testing tons of things, maybe we wouldn't have the cell phones we have today with the connectivity we have today and the different, repeaters, sites, and so on of the cell sites. A lot of the technology was tested and proven by amateur radio years ago. The problem with FT8 is that some people don't like it, and some people find that there's too much people there. And the problem is amateur radio operators themselves. When somebody tells me there's nobody to talk to on the ham bands, I'll just reply back, have you considered calling CQ? Oh, yeah, but, like after 2 minutes, nobody's there. Um, do you know there's a thing called patience? You know, when you go fishing, do you want the fish to bite after 14 seconds or the fish you'll be there an hour before it bites? Well, amateur radio is the same thing. Okay. You've got to take the time to do it properly. Stop being one of those that wants a quick contact thing and do what you want to do and the way you do it. And the more AMs would do that, the more there would be different things to do so. I, as a both voice SSB guy and I do FT8 also, I'll tell you one thing. I've never been disappointed in SSB voice. And I can tell you that if you take your time, there's stuff out there and there are people to talk to. I had a few rack chews. If you just send out a CQ on a band that's open, be patient. You're going to find that guy that's going to talk to you. And be patient. You can have more than you think, than you think you're going to have. But the problem is nobody's doing it. And it's like, oh, well, I read FT8 and there's nobody to talk to. And so I turn off my radio. Yeah, that's the way to go. The other thing is, you know, I get tons of people that are like, well, 10 meters probably closed. It's not. It's open. I don't know how many times 10 meters was open. There's no hams on it. Why? Because people are in this really, really, ignorant way of always just, well, I'm not even checking 10 meters. It must be dead. Or, oh, well, there was nobody on 10 meters. Did you freaking call CQ? Maybe somebody's waiting for you to call CQ. Because if everybody just chills around, says there's nobody around, band must be dead. I'm sorry, but it's interesting how a 10-meter band is dead on a Friday. Saturday's a contest. There's so much people there that there's no space anywhere. But, it was closed on Friday. But it's open on Saturday for the contest. Apparently, the 10-meter band has this weird thing. Propagation opens up only on contest day. Come on, guys. Stop complaining that FT8 is, breaking amateur radio. Stop complaining that whatever mode is, not interesting. Stop complaining about amateur radio as a whole. It's there. It has different things. People love FT8. Good for them. Leave them alone. Leave them doing their FT8. That's all. But if you're not FT8, you're not happy with it, there's other things to do. Do it. And stop sitting on your ass, not doing anything, and thinking that band must be closed, and this is not right. And you know what? Well, I guess with solar storms, propagation must be bad tonight. Yeah, that's why there's nobody on the bands. That's all. I'm going to stop ranting now because, so, it's not just that. It's not just that, people are not, there are people that are not computer literate, and it's fine. And they don't want to do digital modes, and it's fine. They like good old voice. Some people love Morse code. It's great. Actually, I'm learning Morse code with the CDs that Skip sent me because I see so much really nice DX on Morse on CW, and I want to join in. I want to be CW literate. And you know what? Go out there and call CQ and do something. The bands are dead because people aren't there. Not the bands are dead because everybody's on FT8. Stop thinking that. I'm annoyed at people that are always saying that. Well, FT8's killing the hobby. No, what's killing the hobby? Nobody's freaking taking the microphone and saying hello, calling CQ, doing something. Okay? Your guys are bad, not the FT8 crowd. VE2FJG, nice to have you on board. For AM broadcast, do you prefer MLA30 plus SDR or H501X plus internal ferrite? You'll have better performance out of the internal ferrite of the 501X than with the MLA30. And I have multiple examples where even on the long wave bands, I've tuned Navtex transmissions from all over the East Coast just with the internal ferrite of the H501X or the PL990 also. And several others, even the St. Gian. where it's there on the ML830, but it's not as strong. The ML830 is not bad on medium wave, but it drops off as you go down in frequency. And you need to be able to turn your ML830 also, because the problem with AM radio or medium wave DXing for AM broadcast is that if you do use an ML830, you'll have to also turn the antenna. On medium wave is super important. You'll have to turn the antenna to get the different stations, null out other stations. That's where it's kind of easier with the internal ferrite of a radio. So that's my take. What else do we have? Scott KC2C80 BBC did an awesome report the other day on the pirate radio that was called DBC Dread Broadcast Service. Played regular and got busted. Gustav, what about a portable radio? If you had to buy something that is super expensive, 500 and up, what would you recommend? I wouldn't buy a portable radio. At 500 and up, I'd look at what's available either as a tabletop or transceiver, and I would look at a more expensive SDR. But I would not buy a portable. Above 500, there isn't anyways anything interesting. The only one is the failed Ethon Elite HD radio, which isn't worth the money, basically. Volume drop on FM, local station. If I switch to another station FM, there's still the same volume drop. You know what you could be happening, Paul? You're having that drop from there could be a VHF transmission. So where you live, there could be some VHF traffic, and it's actually creating a desensitization of your radio temporarily. I wouldn't be surprised. That radio is extremely sensitive to all of that. So it could be some, local transmission that's happening in the VHF range where, police and all of those services use different transmitters. And because they're not that far from the FM band, it could be that they're creating a problem on the radio when it actually transmits. Hook 911, what is your absolute favorite radio of all time? Shortwave, ham, general coverage. I mean, I did love and I still like a lot the Kenwood R5000. A great radio I like. And the I don't know. I can't, every time somebody says, what's your favorite, I can't put my hand on my favorite is this. I always will tell you there's a bunch of radios I have as my favorites. And depending on what I'm going to listen to and what I'm going to do, I'll just, change. So, but there's a lot of good radios. I'm as happy with my Texan H501 as I would be with my Kenwood R5000 or my ICOM IC8600, AZ500. Sorry, my Yaesu FTDX10 is absolutely superb. It's more of a bunch of radios I just love. I can't really pinpoint or pick one particularly. SDRs are great. I use the SDRs all the time. They're just so much fun to use, and the spectrum display where you can see on the waterfall any signals popping up and showing up everywhere. It's just great, It's more of, that. Fast load, I agree, but you won't go on the FTA band trying to disturb it. No, you have no right to go and disturb anyone on FT8 because you're not happy with FT8, if you don't like it, just like I said in my ranting speech, just leave it alone. Leave FT8 people alone. If you're not happy with them, if you want to puke just hearing FT8, just don't go there and ignore those people. That's all. Just do what you want to do on your ham radio, and that's it. Henry says, having a problem deciding between the XH Data 808 and PL 330. I'm looking for a small, decent shortwave with SSB. Three things. So, what is better on the XH Data 808? You have the airband. If you like to listen to a local airport on the VHF airband, the 808 has the airband. That could be a plus for you. If you want to have RDS on FM, where they display the text of whatever, the songs, the weather, and everything when you're listening to an FM broadcast, XH Data, the 808 has that. If you remove that, the PL330 has a radio, is amazing for its precision and the frequency display. You display to a frequency up to 10 hertz resolution, makes SSB tuning easier because you're in upper lower sideband. All you have to do is tune the proper frequency. You're going to be at 7150.5. That's where the station is. It is. You can calibrate that display. You will have more of an approximate frequency where you're tuning on SSB on the D808. That said, it's fine for tuning SSB. Once you get a hang of it, it works great. So what I would tell you is, mostly, do you want to have the airband for listening to the airports and RDS on FM? If you answer yes, you've already chosen the XH Data D808. If you don't care for that, the PL330 I think is better in its precision for SSB tuning. Makes it easier to tune around SSB. That's what I have to say. Both are roughly sensitive the same. I don't know if they fixed it, but my XH Data D808 I have becomes deaf below 300 kilohertz. If long wave is something for you, that's something to think about, because XH Data D808, in my case, below 300 kilohertz, totally deaf. Fast load, you can think whatever you want about it, but leave the ones that use it alone. Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. KW 1161, the base use FT8 that can be seen as quick emergency messages beside DX contacts. Even more. I've done some FT4, which is even quicker. And what I find interesting is, in emergency situations of trying to get messages across, those would be great. Even though the amount of characters are very small, you can still quickly send across a tough radio environment messages that would be of importance on these, for sure. Skip, we rank you on CW all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more rank you on CW than there is almost in SSB voice at times. Daniel Mark, how's my ham radio journey coming along? Are you as busy in the ham as you're listening to shortwave? I will have to confess that I've been doing a lot more ham than listening to shortwave. And it has in part to do because it's new. When we have something new that's there. I mean, I've been a ham for barely more than a year now. Anything new is always fun. And the fact that you can actually not just listen, but also transmit adds that another layer of fun to it, because there's nothing like sending out a signal from your own radio and antenna and having somebody halfway around the world. Like this week, I had my first Australia. It was about 3 a.m. on, what was it, Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. It was like 3 a.m. And I was on 30-meter band. started calling CQ, and the VK station came back. I was like, whoa, Australia, 15,000 kilometers. You know, that layer of I just sent out a signal and somebody in Australia just answered back to me. It adds to the fun, you know? Um, so right now, I am listening to shortwave still. I dedicate my Saturday evenings, a lot of it, to still listening to radio. But ham radio has been taking a lot of space, I have to say. What else do we have? Scott, KC2C80, voice and CW Ragchu for me, and where it is added for me. And that's perfect, you know. And there needs to be more of that. There needs to be more of that. That's all. MDK2 Matt says, preach. Dennis, appropriate rant. Like 911, I don't care for FT8, but more power to the people using it. The only digital mode I have tried is EMR. That seems to be an internet chat room with a lot more steps, but it's kind of fun. You know, it's what you want to do with it. Chris Alpha Tango is not much of a 595959. Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, I like to have a conversation. I had a few conversations. It was a lot of fun. I had a conversation with a U.S. Marine guy that was in South Carolina about 3 weeks ago. I think we talked for an hour, and the guy was super interesting. I had an amazing life, and you know, I talked about my stuff and my YouTube and my life too, and it's super cool. And you know, there's fun to be had when you find it's like every in life, you know, finding the right people to talk about stuff. I'm okay with, you know, we're just gonna make a contact, you and me. That's fine, especially for DX. I do have a hard time with where my difficulty in ham radio resides is when the person asks for your call sign 5 times and gives you a 5-9. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but a 5-9 should be that you heard me and understood me perfectly the first time that I actually called. So I must not be a 5-9 if you asked my call sign 5 times. Just saying. But some people just don't care about you, you know. I gave a guy a 4-4 and he came back to me not understanding what I was saying because, you know, there's 2 numbers in that scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 2 numbers. Both numbers can be changed depending on how good or bad it is. Did you know that? I guess he didn't know that there was something else in 5-9 or 5 something. You know, it's kind of weird. It's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Phil the Napoli, Air Spy, HF Plus Discovery, and SDR Sharp, Chameleon Dipole antenna works great. Cool. VE3FAL, Fred. 10 has been crazy all day. Most of my operation is 95% CW and 99% QRP. That's great. You know, one of the things I like to do on FT8, I like to go on FT8, drop my radio to 5 watts and see if somebody's going to reply back, just out of curiosity. And you know what? So many times I've been surprised of having somebody answer back. And I'm like, wow, 5 watts. Oak 911. I don't care for FT8. Okay, that's okay. Oak 911, I'm happy what I can hear. More stuff on 10 meters with the cross-country wireless versus the MLA 30 Plus. What else do we have? Paul Steckler, what are your expectations for the new XH data comparable to the Texan PL320? You know what? I think that's pretty much the position where it's going to be. I think the XH data D109 is a Texan PL320. Same non-SSB type receiver. I think they're pretty much the same, personally. Same category of radio. You know, when I look at the price of like the PL320, and I don't know what price is going to be the XH data, but it's I at first I something I understood that I talk about that we don't think about as radio geeks. I So for me and for many of you, you're going to look at the price. You're going to look at the price of the PL320 and the PL330. See, the PL330 has single sideband, and for the difference, you're going to say, "I don't get it. Why you get a 320 when the 330 has SSB for not that much more?" And I am in that category as, yeah, why don't you go for the 330? But I understood one thing, that we have to be careful. And that comes from the fact that when we get too geeky in our radio, the very geeky side of radio brings us to a moment where we are not thinking that some people have a hard time handling the portable radios we have today, because they're looking at it and it's kind of a complex beast with all of these buttons. And I've seen that many times over the last couple of years of people having an XH Data D808, a PL330, a PL990, and they say there's like, I don't know how to operate this thing. There's too many things I don't understand. And I had somebody that had a PL990 mention that he got a PL, what did he get? He got a RadioWow R108, no SSB. And the reason he got that is because he was overwhelmed with what the 990 could do. And he's happy with the R108 because it's simpler to use. And makes you realize that these things are complicated for some people to use. And maybe sometimes having, let's face it, although when you are used to it, not difficult, raise your hand, anybody that has found it kind of tricky and not always that easy to tune around an SSB signal. And I can bet you there's a lot of people that are here today, and a lot of people that have radios that are in the category of, I had a hard time tuning a SSB signal. And it gets to a point where it is an habit that you tune around, you use it regularly, you tune regularly, you get the hang of it. You finish, you end up at some point where it's getting easier. A simple example on one of my videos where I have it here. That's here. One of my videos. The guy watches me using the PL680 here. And the first comment that he puts, because he's watching me tune around the amateur bands, and the first comment that he puts up is, "I've never been able to receive an SSB voice signal on the AM bands. I look at you tuning around and you get them like this. Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong?" And the only thing that I can understand and the only thing I can say is, continue doing it, because in a radio like the PL680, where what you have is a BFO, a beat frequency oscillator, that you have to match for the proper voice. No, it's not that easy sometimes to actually zero in on a voice. And that's where I understand that, there's a market for the PL320. There's a market for the D109. Less complicated is better for a lot of people. Yeah, you won't hear the AM bands. You won't hear the utilities. but you'll listen to international broadcasts, and you'll have fun still. And for some people, that's all they want, anyways. It's we got to be careful. Sometimes we're in our little world, you know. Chuck Yunkin, did anybody try the GA800 active loop antenna by chance? RGA Dakota, I like my XH Data D808 just fine. A C.Crane would just be too expensive for the price. My D808 has a great FM headphone experience. What's my favorite cat, Paul or Minion? I love them both. I do have a preference for Paul because Paul is the first cat. Paul is in his home, really. Paul is actually a very cuddly cat, so it's like he always wants me to be around. If you know, I always if somebody asks me if you had a choice, well, I'll keep Paul the cat. You know, if I had a choice, it's only one. Paul the cat is the cat. He's the one staying here. Which is not what I wanted, you know, as because and Mignon is a very different cat. It's a cat that's it's you know, when it's nice outside, she spends all the time outside. She prefers being outside. Comes in, she eats, she goes back out. And she's not as friendly. She is friendly. She's gotten more friendly over time, but she still has that little, you know, independent side, basically. But you know, love them both still. Robert Cross, how old is the old Grandic shortwave that I have? Yeah, the old Grandic that is, I think you can see it here behind the speaker in the back, right here. You can see a little chunk of it right there. That is 50. It was made in 1969. The satellite transistor 6001, also known as the Grandic Satellite 210. So it's 50. Will be 53 years old this year. It was actually done. It was built the year that I was born. So we're the same age. V3FAL just ordered an MLA30, hoping it brings better life to my St. Jean ATS 909X2. If you have a lot of noise, it's going to definitely help. You will need a adapter for the connector for the antenna, though. Matt says the irony of ranting over FT8 is twofold. One, voice operations are illegal at those frequencies. They're CW and digital only. Two, just going to go down here because I lost the post. Just going to go down and try to re-find where I was. I accidentally thank you, Robert Cross, for the tip. Much appreciated. So, okay. And two, the nature of FT8 means that voice literally will not interfere with FT8 mode. So all that guy is letting everyone know is that he's an idiot. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when he was ranting, I don't think it actually impacted anything. I made contacts with Europe and whatever, and I could hear him in between the cycles talking, but it kind of just didn't do anything. Just a box, Jim Gordon on eBay UK, just a box for a Sony 2001D, 162 pounds. Really? Really? God. Oh, God. These guys. Storms, Radios, and Cats. Nice to have you on board. Jim Gordon agreed the D808 is one of the best all-around radios for DXers. As you have noted, it's weak on long wave, like most DSP radios. I've noticed this also on the Ethon Satellite Executive and cheaper DSP Texans. But still, It's weaker. That one is weaker than the other ones. I still have reception on long wave below 300 kilohertz on mine, my other radios, where that one just drops dead to zero. Curtis Gump, nice to have you here. And raining in California today. Keegan DXer says his dad does SSB and CW mostly. What else do we have? What else do we have? Yeah, but read a manual. A lot of people are not in that category. Reading a manual isn't necessarily helping them. Some people, first you've got to John Beckham. Nice to have you here from Northeast Florida, by the way. KW61 says your signal could be 5.9 except you have a lousy memory. Forget Your Life says reverse beacon network is fun to play with if you're looking for an idea of where your signal is going. Storms and Cats, Radios and Cats. I think the last stick of wood may have been overkill. Nearly sweating. Hide Radios. Thank you for the tip. Nice to have you here, my friend. Take care, Matt. Always nice to have you here, MDK too. What else do we have? So, like I said, sometimes reading the manual isn't always, that's why I need to make more. Everybody that has these radios tell me that when I make videos and they look at me playing with the buttons and how I use it, helps them tremendously. Some people have to see somebody using it to actually be able to do it also. Jim Gordon often sung the praises of the D808, but I still haven't figured out how to set the presets. Fortunately, it's something I seldom use on my radios, except my favorite, the 2001D. Yeah, that's a problem for a lot of radios, setting presets and stuff like that. Maybe that should be my next series of videos. Curtis Gump, have you heard of the TEF 6686 radio? Very sensitive and selective on FM. Antenna comes with the radio breaks easily. Yeah, I've looked at it. I don't really have any opinion on it, though. Hector Vasquez, nice to have you on board from Los Angeles. John Beckham, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Scott says, Paul is the man. Some radios and cats. I have 7 cats here. My kids can't have their cats where they live, so I take care of them. It's hard to choose which one I would take if I had to choose. Well, for me, it's simple. It's the simple fact that Paul the cat is the cat that I actually chose to keep because I had a choice. Paul the cat, when my neighbor moved and she asked me if I wanted Paul, it also meant there was a contract with it because the first thing that you think is that going from not having any animals to having a pet means you also are now choosing to have a life which is a little more different because you can't leave the cat alone. There are things that you have to think about now. If you want to go on vacation, it's something you got to think about. So there's that. There's the fact that you're going to take care of the cat. If you get sick, you're going to have to go to the vet. It's going to cost you money. All sorts of things you got to think about. So, Paul, I've chosen and accepted that he would be here because obviously Paul loved it here much more. I know Paul is like, Paul is like in love with me. It's crazy how Paul reacts to me, and I'm the guy, and he's always next to me, meows to call me for something. He's crazy. It's crazy. You should see a full day with Paul the cat and me. Oh man, he sleeps next to me, cuddled really really tight. Um, I've chosen to have Paul, and so it came with a contract that and I actually, when I looked at Paul, I looked, when I got him the first day, he was officially my cat. I looked at him, I said, well, there's a contract that I accepted. I will keep you, whatever happens. I will never, ever abandon you. Never. I have accepted a contract that you're here, and it's for the rest of your life and my life. So, however old he's going to live, I will never abandon Paul. Mignon, on the other hand, is a cat that was abandoned by some family or somebody. So she spends most of the time outside. So even though I've accepted that she's here, she sleeps here, she spends the cold days of winter here, she eats. It's not the same contract. If I have to choose, I'll have to choose, and means that it's sad, but Mignon's the one's gonna go. Paul is the one I'm gonna keep. I do not want to have to do that choice. I don't think I'll ever have to, but if it would come to that, that would be the case. Um, because it's a different contract. I've not chosen to have you. You have chosen me, and I've accepted that you come inside. I've accepted that you live here if you want. But it's a different contract. It's not like Paul. Jordan Hatter says to find a weak signal and fundle with the wheels and buttons to get the best out of it is most fun. Yeah. Robert Cross says, I'm thinking about buying Grundig shortwave radio like yours on eBay. Parts not working. I'm going to restore one. I'm just going to tell you one thing about that radio particularly. Sorry. One of the guys that I follow restores radios. And I'm just going to tell you one thing, Robert. He has found the same Grundig, and he was never able to repair it. And the reason is it's a extremely complex radio and its design. So if you're able to fix that radio, Robert, you are darn good, because it is very complicated. I mean, in there's gears, there's all sorts of things happening. It's like mechanical. It's a extremely mechanical receiver inside of all the different rotating, gears and stuff to put the different bands and the visible frequency and so on. Just pressing buttons actually pulls strings that changes gears and changes things around. It's crazy complicated. So don't pay too much for it if it's not working, because it's going to be a really tough one to repair. But if you can, cool. But I tell you, it's a tough one. So that guy admitted on his website that he was never able to repair it, and he actually bought another one that works and keeps the old one if he needs a specific part. But he admits how complicated the thing was to actually work. Timothy Gunter, nice to have you here. Mark, nice to have you on board from Oak Creek, Wisconsin, W9USO. Storms, Rages, and Cats. My cats use the outdoors for their litter box. I have a cat. I have a cat door. Yeah, well, in the summer, they actually do use the outdoor for the litter. So it's kind of nice. But man. What else do we have? Snores Adder says 2 black gremlins here. John Beckham says, I'm simply amazed at how active 15 to 16,000 megahertz kilohertz has been lately, especially in the morning, Northeast Florida. Yeah, with the high solar activity, and especially at this time of the year, um, it's amazing. February, March, the diversity of signals is great. Scott, my sister owns a spay and neuter clinic for cats. King and DXer, my cats are outdoors and come indoors into an area of a room through a cat door and for food and water and warmth in winter. Portable DX log. My orange light version of XH Jetta D808 works okay on long wave DXing. I wonder if the earlier blue light version D808 had insensitivity problems. Yeah, maybe they fixed it over time. I don't know. Because it will go up to about 300 kilohertz. Works fine. But below 300, it just drops dead to receiving absolutely nothing. Timothy Gunter has wildcats in the neighborhood. Andy Colley, nice to have you on board. K6SUD, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Keegan DXer, my cats, one black and one white female and two orange males. Mitzi, Tom Tom, and Short Stuff. Cool. Turbo Tim, they like to walk on the keyboard because it's probably where you have your scent, first of all, and probably because it's warm. Computers, there's some warmth. And if it's a keyboard, it has their scent. It's something you're touching. They want to have attention, so they're going to go there. Cats want a lot of attention, honestly. V3FAL, I've been looking at SDR radios, but do any Receiver P25 and other VHF trunking systems? The SDR is not what does that. It's the software that you use to have P25 capability and trunking. You have to use SDR Sharp and have the plugins like DSD Plus. So in reality, what you need is an SDR that works with SDR Sharp, which means SDR Play devices are no good because they're not allowed on SDR Sharp. But if you buy an AirSpy HF Plus, it will. Or if you want it cheap, just get the real original RTL SDR V3 dongle. That will be inexpensive. That works with SDR Sharp. You could play with this DSD Plus software and plugins. That will give the capabilities of doing P25 and a few other things, including trunking systems. This is something I have not explored that I really need to check out. And that would actually be a great use of my RTL as the RV3 that I don't use a lot, honestly. So really, it's really the software. If you can have SDR Sharp running and have the DSD Plus plugins and stuff, you'll be able to do that. Joseph, nice to have you on board from the San Francisco Bay Area, California. Richard Califano, same thing. Having a puppy is a life changer. Yes, I am an official cat daddy. Wow, Michael, his sister-in-law has 18 cats. Somebody I knew a couple of years ago had, I think he had something like 10 or 12 cats. It was crazy. John Beckham, Jill, it is very true. Owning a cat is a forever thing, as I love my Daisy girl. Yeah, I mean, I find it stupid people that get an animal to, and once something changes in life, it's like, well, animal's going away. I got a new girlfriend. Oh yeah, well, she's allergic to cats. Cat's going. No, that's they have feelings and they love you, and that's not the way it works. I have a hard time with that. If you do get an animal, if you think that you'll have to get rid of your cat or dog at some point, unless you have somebody that you know you're going to take care of it and is going to be happy there. Don't have an animal. Just don't have any animals. Don't have any pets. Paul Steckler, my name is Paul too. Is there someone who will commit to not abandoning me? Well, I can tell you, as long as you're here, we're never going to abandon you. You'll be stuck in the shortwave radios for life. So just stay here all the time. Yeah, that's pretty much it, Scott. I own Paul, but I feed Mignon. Absolutely, that's pretty much the way it is. Dan V, nice to have you on board. N8WJZ in Ohio. Curtis Gum, do you have any idea when the Ethon Elite Satellite HD radio is coming out? The new Ethon E1 HD is too expensive, and I have the original Ethon E1 XM. They haven't, there's absolutely no word. The only thing I've read and seen somewhere, and I think was Universal Radio, I don't remember where exactly, they said that it is and would be a possibility for like June of this year. But, with the fiasco of the new radio, I think that Ethon is going to be kind of thinking twice before investing in something new and having a new radio out. That's for sure. Um, oh yeah, Robert Cross, definitely. It's fun to have these old radios come back to life. Definitely. So, Curtis, the Ethon Elite Executive HD radio. This radio seems to be and might be a good radio for DXing hobby when it comes out. Have the original Elite Executive good radio. Yeah, it depends on how they do it. I hope they do it right, because that Elite HD is a fiasco. Joe Walker, both me and my wife are employed by our cat. Unfortunately, she recently informed us the empty food bowl incident will be on our permanent records. Oh, man. Mignon was so funny this afternoon because before the live show, I made a cake yesterday. And I was eating a slice of cake. And she was looking at me in front of an empty food bowl and me eating cake. And she was like, meow, meow. And it was like, you're eating in my face and there's nothing in my bowl. That's not normal. Oh, man. Francis Moore, I wilder my garden and now all the cats use it. Yeah, when there's a lot of vegetation, cats often go in there. Part of it for later for their litter box, but yeah, there's regular fights with cats in the backyard in the summertime. Keegan, there's a new Ethon Elite Executive HD similar to the Ethon Grande Edition that could be released in May. Hope it works out. We're gonna see. So I heard it was June, so we're gonna see. V3 FAL, thanks for that. I use BrickAt scanners now, but would be nice to have an SDR that does the same and much cheaper. Scanner prices have gone through the roof. Yeah, and you know what? I'm kind of in the it's not worth buying any of these new digital, scanner radios. They're too expensive. And you never know when that service that you're able to hear now will change to some new service or maybe become encrypted, and then you lost that capability. So that is an inexpensive way of doing it, although you'll have to work on having it working. But $30, $25, $30 RTL SDR V3 dongle, SDR Sharp, DSD Plus plugin, and all of that. And you can play around with all of that. And it's inexpensive. Software is free. All you have to pay is that $25, $30 dongle. But if you do, and anybody out there that buys a RTL SDR V3, be warned. it is important to buy it from the official website, the rtlsdr.com website. Go there to buy it, because there's way too many knockoffs that look like it. They tell you it's the same, it isn't, and it doesn't receive shortwave. It doesn't work the same. There's a lot of fakes out there. Be careful. Let me just go down. There we go. V3 FAL, Negredic, so much is sealed and closed up that even sprays and deoxit is hard to get into repair. Yep. What else do we have? KW1161 says the old Grenadics are like the modern BMW cars. Need a doctorate degree to repair them. Yep. Paul Steckler, yeah, exactly like that. Mignon, which means kind of cutie, or, if I have to translate, it would translate as cutie. K6SUD, Paul needs to make an appearance to the show. I think he's sleeping. I haven't heard him. If I do hear him or anything, I'll try to have him come over. Michael, what's the best new shortwave radio that has basic controls with SSB? Texan PL330, XH Data D808. We've been talking a lot about that. They're great. If you don't want to have muting when you tune, then you could go to Texan PL990 or 880 or H501. You can maybe go to, and I hesitate to talk about the St. Jean ATS 909X2 because too much people are reporting that they got one where SSB or low, when they're in single sideband, the volume is too low. So, hey, David from Barcelona. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. I saw that on your Twitter feed. Well, I was actually posting the link today. David in Barcelona, by the way, hello. EA3IEK, EA4998URA. I don't know. It may be, made me ask myself a few questions. And I don't want to, so I see that guy DL7APV has that darn amazing array for that Earth Moon Earth experiment here. So definitely pretty crazy. And he's doing QRP Earth Moon Earth. Is there, so okay, and I've seen your setup because on Twitter you had pictures. I've seen the antenna you're using, pointed to the moon. My question that came to mind, and it's not because I want to, think that you're not, you didn't do it or anything, because that question would actually be the exact same question that I would have had. How do you know that that contact was Earth Moon Earth and not some good 70 centimeter distance ground, line of sight or whether ground wave because of some tropo effect or whatever? Is there something? so I thought about it. Definitely, if you have an Earth Moon Earth contact, there should be a delay because it takes um, a few seconds for the going to the moon and coming back for the signal. So is that delay is what you use to prove that what you had was a Earth Moon Earth contact? Um, just asking because I'm curious. Um, Spain and Germany are not that far away technically on Earth, so it made me wonder if how do you know that the contact was really a Earth Moon Earth and not just a good distance 70 centimeter ground wave, just out of curiosity. Um, Jordan Hatter says, honestly, my pets were first here. My pets versus new girlfriend. Last hired, first fired. Period. But congratulations, definitely on an Earth Moon Earth contact. That's definitely some DX there for sure. Michael, with cats and dogs, you have to be committed and responsible. And we have 2 dogs and a cat, 3 fish tanks, and 150 gallons. And the Luther one is 265 gallons. Youch. Zenfaros, just this minute, as you mentioned, the empty food bowl, my cat jumped onto my food plate, which was nearly empty, and looked at me. Yes, his food bowl was empty. Sheila, pets. First they steal your heart, then they steal your wallet. One of our pets is Bird, and she has expensive taste. Yeah, it does cost some money, definitely. John Beckham, I find myself DXing 50105025 as these 2 shortwave stations come in well every evening here in Northeast Florida. Jasmine, hello. I heard someone who sometimes is in the chat right after the show. Last week, K6YYL doing a winter field day, 20 meters. Cool. So nice to have you here, Jasmine. Francis, my caring duties are now over. I lost my mom. I'm signing off now. It was a month ago, and it's tough. God bless. Well, take care, my friend. Takes time to move on, but we're all with you, and I'm with you. One of the things that is when you're a caregiver, because I was a caregiver, I'm still a caregiver now. I was a caregiver for my mom when she passed away in 2008. There's one good side to it. If we have to look at, the positive side is now you'll kind of be free to and get your life back. And it is sad that somebody had to pass away, and like when I lost my mom. But look at the future now. Look in front of you. You have your life now. You have your time back to also, maybe go and enjoy stuff that will actually take your mind off all of that also at the same time. So hang in there, and my condolences go to you and your family. What do we have here? Michael, 15770 DX Club Show. Well, it should be WRMI, so you might have something new on the air. I haven't tuned 15770 in a long, long time. I can tell you that. So what else do we have? Curtis Gump, I also thought about buying an SDR radio. Is the Malahite SDR worth getting? Don't know that much about them. I want to know what you would recommend for recording the band also. I don't know what you're looking for if you absolutely want to have something portable, but if you were to go SDR way, I would definitely go more with an SDR that plugs into a computer, which is, in my opinion, much more interesting than the Malahite SDR. And with that, you can do everything. And you can even record the bands, or record a spectrum. You can, it's easy to go through all of it. Well, it's not easy. You got a learning curve, but there's a lot to, there's a lot you can do. What else do we have? Yeah, well, there's the Doppler effect. Craig W9CFW, nice to have you here. I'm just curious. Mickey Dalmage wanted to have a pet snake, but nobody wanted to care after it. Would you take care of my 20-foot boa? Oh, man. Oh, no problem. You just have to feed it a couple of mice. Oh, God. What else do we have? So, David, yes. So basically, I know it was Earn Moon Earn mainly because both his antenna and mine were very directional. His is much more directional than mine, of course. So, of course, if he was pointing to the moon, the signal can only have come from there. I also noticed as soon as the moon moved off my antenna, I'd get less decodes. Third, I was on HB9 QEME chat, and he confirmed the QSO. And fourth, it would have to be one heck of an opening. Yeah, I totally understand that it would be one heck of a opening. But, it's not to doubt your contact. It's just that I would have been in that situation. I just would have had that doubt about my contact. Thinking about, could it be? Is it really true? So I don't know. That's all. But I have no doubt that you probably did it. It's just but your explanation kind of shows it's probably that. So okay, cool. And congratulations. I mean, it's a hell of a fun thing. I'm sure you're already looking forward to trying something like that again soon. I don't know. There must not be that many ham radio operators that actually do the Earth Moon Earth thing, though. That'd be kind of cool if you had like a North American station doing EME that you'd go with, that you'd be able to make a contact like that. Moon has to be up on both places at the same time. Kind of cool. Lindy, how's your friend been doing? Better with the operation. It helped out, so it's better, but still requires quite a lot of time. There's a lot of physiotherapy going on and all sorts of things that I have to take care of every week. But it's a little better than it was at least 6 months ago. I have a little more time on my hands, basically. John Beckham, for your information, for what it's worth, and Rongda K603 is a much more sensitive shortwave receiver than Reticus V115. Two radios are very similar. So, what else do we have? You can hook the Malahite to a computer. Okay, interesting. Will not explain much about why somebody's off, but I will just say one thing is that if you piss me off, you're off, and that's all. And he pissed me off, and he's off. And that will be the only explanation I will give. I am the master of the group. I decide what happens here. Curtis, hope that WNJC 1360 DX test is getting out. Heard that station is running 2 kilowatt non-directional pattern. Are they still on? They were supposed to be off in January. So anyway, first time ever successfully flash firmware on the ATS 20 Plus to 3.0.7. I can see the frequency better. Cool. Cool. Yeah, it was supposed to stop in January. That's it's crazy. So maybe they're still continuing. David, I know Joe myself. I find it difficult to believe it was EME because my setup is almost laughable for that. But all evidence points to the fact that it can't have been anything else. Cool. It's the I guess you have that too. It's for me, it's the curiosity and doubt of did it really happen, kind of, But either way, it's like you said, it would be a hell of a 70 centimeter distance to go, and so it's kind of cool. Congratulations. What else do we have? Icon. There are people transmitting above and below the CB channels, but not in the actual 10 meter, 11 meter bands. Some don't identify as hams. Is that considered amateur ham band or just shortwave? It's not an amateur band. So the 10 meter amateur band is 28,000 to 29,700. And the other band below for amateur radio is 24,890 to 24,990, the 12 meter band. In between there, when you hear people and they're not in the actual CB channel bands, they're considered out of banders simply. And it's just people that use, probably most of them use modified ham radio gear and transmit on those frequencies. The official out of band calling frequency is 27,555. A lot of people use that to try to make contacts and then move on to another frequency to continue their contacts. And you will receive signals from, Europe, from all over the place. So it's really out of band CBers and people using out of band, modified ham equipment most of the time for that. There's a lot of that. It's been going on for a long time, and there's different modes also. Like you'll see some in CW. I've seen Morse code stuff there, but a lot of them are in SSB, single sideband. But there's AMers, there's FM guys also. You'll hear some in a narrow FM band broadcasting there also. Simon Templar, as it should be. You own the channel on Facebook. Yep. Just abide by the rules, and if you're not happy, well, you're out. Ricardo, greetings from Portugal. Nice to have you on board. And for those asking, or didn't ask, but I'm at 1 month. I've reached 1 month of no alcohol, so this is still cranberry juice and sparkling water. No alcohol. David says, if you want to try, I can recommend the Diamond A430S15 Yagi, which is one of the is the one myself, many others have. It's not too expensive, and it can also be used to work the Green Cube satellite. I'll check that out. I'd love to try all of these things. I want to try satellite also. That's the thing. I want to try satellite stuff. That would be my personal VHF UHF fun would be to do satellite stuff. Jasmine says also some Cawthon frequencies in the band. You know, all the way up to 26, 27 megahertz. There's some utility stations that are there that could. There's even some U.S. Air Force, Mars military stuff that can happen as those very high frequencies. Glenn Danzer was a professor of physics at university. Students in amateur astronomical club. We did laser moon bounce every semester, bouncing off mirrors left by the Apollo landers. Oh, cool. That must be great. John Beckham, speaking about CB radio, to me, it is early days was lots of fun, especially taking skip. Well, there's a lot of skip going on. You would be in the, you're probably brings you back to the early days. I still remember when I had my first set of walkie-talkies on channel 14 and being mad, not understanding that what I was hearing was actually skipped from like the US, and being mad because I couldn't make with those just 100 milliwatt talkies. We couldn't really talk a good distance because there was all of these skip signals coming over us. I still remember. I had no idea. I had no idea about skip and signals. These signals, if I even had known that these signals came from so far away, for me these signals probably were from the city here. David says, by the way, DL7APV worked many first timers like me from Japan all the way to the US, so I'm sure you could perfectly work them. Wow, that's kind of interesting. What what mode do you? It's FT8, right? You use FT8 or something like that for the signal bounce. Because I saw your screen, you had the WSJTX. So, what's the mode that you used for the contact? Richard Califano, yep, CW is heard using sideband. Absolutely. You will listen to all the CW Morse code stations using sideband. Richard. What else do we have? Okay, that is good. So King and DXer with a apple juice. That's great. Yeah, I've seen that Hook 911. I've seen I've seen someone use it somewhere. The weather balloon fiasco, a Sputnik moment. Joe Michaels, would the US be able to jam the signals from the Chinese spy balloon? Well, yeah, I don't know what they used for communications, if they were using some kind of maybe transmitter to a satellite. If you know what frequency you can jam anything. If you know the frequency it's transmitting on, you can jam it. The problem is there are regulations that make it difficult. You're not supposed to jam satellite. You're not supposed to jam so many things. Jamming that balloon might mean you're jamming more than just that balloon. Maybe you're jamming other things unintentionally. Definitely there would be a way to do it. But first of all, you got to know the transmitting frequency. What's the transmit frequency of the balloon? and how, where it's going. Where is it? Probably satellite, because honestly, the balloon being there, if it's meant to transmit, that means that it's transmitting to satellite. It's pretty much the only way it will be able to, send a signal back to China, because there's no line of sight there. So you got to know what frequency, what satellite. It could be done, but it's you need to know all of these parameters, basically. You know. Storms Regions and Cat said there's a CB operator from the UK, Kate 26 CE101 Radio DX. She makes contacts in the US nearly every week or so. Pretty impressive. I used to talk to Australia on a lower sideband on a CB radio years ago. There's a lot of CBers I've seen that just with the 12 watts of single sideband with a good antenna made contacts pretty far ago. So, David, the mode Q6560B, which is similar to FT8, it also uses SJTX software, but each transmit receive is 60 seconds. So it's optimized for EME. Okay. Q6560B. Yeah. I was looking at the different modes and settings of WSJTX the other day, and I could see that there was a lot of these exotic modes in it. And I thought, yeah, okay, there's some stuff in here because I mean, if you go into frequencies, you can go into the gigahertz. So there's definitely all sorts of digital modes for some of the frequencies high above the VHF, UHF range for sure. Keegan DXer remembers TV skip on Channel 3 from KVBC Las Vegas, Nevada, 2008, and XHBC Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico from 2010 to 2014 on Channel 3. That reminds me when I had that big black and white TV in the 80s that my parents had and was lying around doing nothing. And I'll still remember a very hot afternoon, sunny afternoon in the summer, July summer. I'm with my friend. I'm with a friend, and we were kind of having fun playing around, trying to find and get TV stations from far away with just the rabbit ears. And sometimes I would hook up a some wire and try to make things better. And I still remember when we started tuning around on Channel 4, there was a very clear image of a station. And we were like, wow, what's that? And it was in English and everything. And it took time before we could actually identify what was there. And of course, at the top of the hour, when the first top of the hour, when they ID'd, the signal faded out, never got the ID. It came back. I remember, I think it was some Jeopardy playing or something like that. And it took a while, but after a moment, we had a clear, nice, big Channel 4, Dothan, Alabama. And I was like, Alabama. I remember me and my friend, we looked at each other and was like, what? I'm getting a TV channel from Alabama. This is so amazing. And that had started my curiosity of TV DXing and trying to get other stations. It was so clear. I wish I had a VCR back then. I would have recorded the signal. I'm sure the VCR would have caught it too. It was just so clear. When it was clear, it was just amazing. Lex 2006 PL990 R108. That was me. I would recommend a 108 for beginner because it's so easy to use. Yeah, and that's what I was saying is we've got to sometimes back off in our knowledge to realize that not everybody's in the same level, and we all have a different we all find it more and less. a great example, that FTDX10 that I have here, I had it for a few days, and I posted a couple of videos of different things that I tried, and somebody sent me an email, said, I had the FTDX10 for I've owned the FTDX10 for more than a year, and he says, you in 3 days have mastered more on that radio than I have in a year. And he says, how do you do it? I'm amazed that, and we all have a different way of being able to kind of grasp and use devices and electronic stuff. I've been using electronics and computers and things for so long. Also, I think the fact that I'm not scared, for example, on the Yaesu FTDX10, what's the worst that can happen if you start tweaking everything? You've got a reset that's available for you. You can reset the radio to factory default. So don't be scared to play around with the settings, because if they're not working well and if they're not right, or if you just messed up everything, just reset the radio to factory default. It'll be back like the day you bought it. So there's that side also, not being scared. I do have probably an advanced way of also understanding, because I understand a lot of the functions, what they already do before, by the name that they have. I know what that's supposed to do. But we're not all the same level, and I have it easy. I take a radio, don't read the manual, and I'll be, using all the functions of the radio in no time. And we're not all like that. Not everybody can, just take a device and it's like, oh yeah, look at that, I can do this, I can do that now with this, that, and click. Some need to read the manual. Some have no choice. They have to read the manual. You won't be able to do anything without it. Some need to have somebody visually do it in front of them. And so I have a lot of videos that I've done that are helping others, because I've tuned around. You don't realize, but when I do some of the videos where I tune around the bands, tune SSB, play around with the buttons, the functionalities, I always get messages back of, wow, that video of you tuning around with your radio made me understand things on my radio that I didn't know how to operate. But now I do, because I watch you do it. So, we all have a different way of learning. We also all have a different ability of how we can learn. And that's where we've got to have all the different ways of showing things. And that's where also a channel like mine, sometimes we have to back off and get back down to the basics a little more, because it is something that we tend to forget when we get into a more expert level, Before I continue to chat, I just want to mention a little something. Somebody asked me a question, and I want to talk about it, about antenna tuners, because so he has a transceiver, been using an antenna tuner, internal antenna tuner, purchased an external antenna tuner, and he says, I thought the antenna tuner, the external antenna tuner, would help me tune the antenna better. I don't see that much of a difference, and so on. And he says, it's supposed to tune my antenna. And that's where I kind of told him, I said, it doesn't tune your antenna. Actually, antenna tuners have a wrong name. They should be called impedance matchers. An antenna tuner does not tune your antenna. Your antenna needs to be good to transmit, whether you're using an antenna tuner or not. What the antenna tuner does, it simply matches the impedance so that your radio is happy. So if you plug in your antenna directly to the radio and check your standing wave, you'll notice that you might have, depending on the bands, the AM bands that you're transmitting on, a different level of standing wave, SWR. And what happens with that is that the SWR is a way of telling you that your antenna is mismatched. It doesn't tune the frequency you're on, really. It's off by some extent. So if your antenna, and I'll give that example, if your antenna gave you a 2-to-1 ratio, the antenna tuner did not remove the 2-to-1 standing wave ratio. It matched the impedance so that the radio doesn't see it anymore and transmits perfectly without having problems. The problem is that 2-to-1 ratio stays there at the antenna side. So the matching doesn't remove the standing wave that existed. That standing wave, that mismatch is still a mismatch. Your antenna's not giving the full power out. All that happened with an antenna tuner is that it matched the impedance so that your radio is happy with it and that has no problem transmitting with it. And the difference between a internal and an external antenna tuner is more of the capability of the external antenna tuner to tune things that the internal antenna tuner will never be able to do so. For example, internal antenna tuners like on the Yaesu FTDX10, they are capable of matching any antenna that has a standing wave ratio up to about 3-to-1. So anything below 3-to-1, that is going to match. What it matches, once again, is the impedance. That 3-to-1, it still exists. Their antenna is still incapable of having the match to the frequency you're tuned to. It does have a 3-to-1 standing wave ratio still. It's not because you see no standing wave anymore on your meter that you have no more standing wave in the antenna. It just matched the impedance. That's all that it did. It does not tune an antenna, and that's the big problem that a lot of people are. Is like, well, it's tuning my antenna. No, it's an impedance matcher. It's not a tuner. It just matches the radio circuit to whatever is connected, and there's still loss of signal. So what you want is a good antenna that resonates to the frequency you're using, like a dipole, for example, made for a specific band. You know, if you have a good antenna, you don't even need an antenna tuner. If you have a matching antenna, a resonating antenna, a dipole to 40 meters, it'll work out of the box without having a matching done because it's matched, because it's actually resonating to that frequency. So there's a lot of, you got to understand that you still have loss. So if your antenna's way off, but your antenna tuner still matches it, you're still way off. You're losing some of that power still with an antenna tuner. It's very important to understand that. So where was I? Let me just go here. Okay, I think I was somewhere here. Okay, what else do we have? John Beckham, cranberry juice, great for your kidneys and also good source of vitamin C. So you're drinking healthy here this afternoon. Yeah, well, that's what I'm my I just did my standard drink, vodka, without vodka. So I did my cranberry juice, sparkling water. It's just there's no vodka in it like I do usually do. So now I'm at a month without alcohol now. Scott, Art Bell got a lot of his listeners to aim their laser pointers at New Moon and light it up. Didn't work. Yeah, she need a lot more powerful laser pointers, I think. So, I don't know what the balloon does. We know it could be spying, it could be science, it could be anything, anyways. Jim Gordon, anyone out there remember in June 70 when the UK government jammed offshore pirate radio North Sea? Jamming could be heard loudly here in the Scotland. The jammer was in southeast England. Yep. Curtis Gump, how do SDRs work? Example, can you hook the module box to your actual radio like a Sony ICF 2010? And I have a core loop and would use the SDR with the loop, and the radio would it work? Actually, an SDR is an autonomous radio. It is a radio. So a software defined receiver, an SDR, is a radio that doesn't have knobs. So the knobs are the controls of the software on the computer. But it's a radio. It's like it's a radio. So think about an SDR being a radio like your Sony, except that no controls, nothing. It has to be hooked to a computer, a tablet of some sort to be able to control it. So then you plug an antenna on it and so on. King of the Xer, Channel 4, Dothan, Alabama, WTVY. Remember watching Jeopardy on an analog channel 3 from Ontario in 2011. When 1960. Nice to have you here. Okay, 24. So King and the Xer says the Channel 3 station with Jeopardy was possibly a relay of the CBC station in Ottawa. Yeah, I don't know because CBC doesn't have, from what I know, CBC doesn't have, never had Jeopardy. So if you've got a Channel 3 station with Jeopardy on it, you actually had a private station. It was some other network because the CBC does not and has never, I don't think, ever had Jeopardy on it. Gary 24 fan picked up a CBS station in Ohio from here in Maine when I was in high school on my little bedroom TV. The only thing different was I had my TV temporarily moved near the bedroom window. Richard Califano, there was another guy named Phil Andre in the 90s. He did all the voices of his guests. Joe. Just gonna try to find where I am. Okay. Nice to have you here, Joe. Remember the older days of shortwave when you would monitor a station for 20 minutes to catch a station ID and then the signal would fade out. Oh yeah, that was, and it was, it's like Murphy's Law. It was always the case. Danny Shortwave, I did that with my Xiegu G90, had to reset it a couple of times, messing with all those settings. Oh, that's how you learn. That's how you learn how it works. That's how you learn, at some point how the proper settings are. Playing around. Christian Marcoux, bonne soirée. Take care, my friend. It's nice to have you here. So what you're saying, once the impedance is set, you don't have to touch it again, or is it frequency dependent? It will be the frequency dependent. So normally if you tune, like if I tune my FTDX10, you're matching the impedance. You're on the frequency you're transmitting. If you play around, above or below that frequency, you don't have to retune. In general, you're tuned. You don't have to touch it again on that same band, most of it. But yes, if you're in the bottom of the band, say you are on the 40 meters, you actually tune 7,050 kilohertz. And then you move up to 7,250. There will be a bigger mismatch because you moved away from where you tuned, but it shouldn't be that much of a difference. It shouldn't be that bad. Of course, with an antenna tuner, you can just retune wherever you go to. But in general, you're tuned. But that said, also, it's not always the same. Meaning, you might have tuned today, but things change. The weather outdoors, the more humidity, it's raining, it's windy, all sorts of factors will change slightly that impedance. So you will need to retune regularly. That is normal. There's a shifting and a change in the way it is, but it is frequency dependent. So if you tune 40 meters, you will need to tune. If you go to another band, you'll have to retune. It is frequency dependent. But if your antenna is not good for a band, the antenna tuner doesn't make it better. You're still transmitting, you're matching your radio with a crappy antenna, if that's the case. So if you were losing, if you're losing power or losing some transmitting power because of that, you're still losing some transmitting power. But you know, you don't have to go crazy. I was looking at a mismatch chart. You know, if your mismatch is like if your SWR is 2 to 1, you're losing 8 or 9 or 10 watts or something like that. You're not losing that much. The majority of the power is still going out into the antenna. So one of the things is, yes, you want to match your antenna as best as possible, but you don't go overly crazy on a higher SWR. You still have a lot of power going out, you know. Where you go crazy is if you start getting above 2, mostly above 3, then start worrying because now you're losing a lot of power when you're transmitting. But you know, it's there's an overhype of SWR. If you're 1.5 on 1, you're almost not losing. You're losing very little power. Most of it is still going out, and you're still transmitting a beautiful signal. Yes, you want to try to match as best as possible because, you know, the bigger the mismatch, and that will mean the bigger the mismatch of impedance on the radio, the more dangerous it is to blow up a final on the radio if you transmit for a long time. But just remember that an antenna tuner doesn't tune your antenna. It matches the impedance of that antenna to your radio so that your radio is happy. So that's why, you know, I said it on my thing on my ham radio course. I told him, so these things should be called impedance matchers, not antenna tuners. What else here? By the way, the QSL for FT8. Okay, David, yours is not yet in the mail. I owe you one. I owe Matt MDK21 for our contact too, because he sent it too. And I owe two hams that send me an email telling me they wanted to have a QSL. So I have 4 to put in the mail. Today is Saturday. I will try to have that in the mail Monday or Tuesday at the latest. So you should get it soon. So thanks for the QSL for our contact, David. Carl Icon says radio free whatever on 6955 kilohertz. Yep. Pretty good signal too here in Montreal, 6955, radio free whatever. Timothy Gunter, Channel 8 KTUL, Tulsa would come in as clear as day on Bailey Hill, where my aunt and uncle lived in Fort Smith. Cool. Thank you, Michael. Hook 911, watch a guy on YouTube showing a match on shortwave. When it matched, the antenna is received went up quite a bit. Still wrapping my head around that one. Well, if you match, so here's the thing: is if you match the impedance between the antenna and the radio, it means there's in that part there's no loss because it's the same. So there could be an improved signal because no loss, no mismatch. That definitely could be possible. But a bad antenna stays a bad antenna. So this is important to know. What I did is I removed the antenna tuner from the Yaesu. So I just pressed a button to remove the tuner from the circuit. And I went on each amateur band and I keyed up to see what my SWR is on each band. So on 160, no wonder it doesn't tune. My my SWR is like through the roof. It's like a 10 to 1. It forget it. But on 80 meters, I'm at about 2.5 to 1. Just the antenna, no antenna tuner in the circuit, which means the impedance isn't that far from the radio's impedance. On 40, on 30, I was below 2 to 1. The best bands for me were 15, 12, and 10. The radio gives me a 1-to-1 SWR. Very close. So that means around those high frequencies and matches. And the highest impedance in one band that I can still transmit that the ATU is still matching, 6 meters, I got a 3 to 1. And that's without the antenna tuner. Now, I'd like to have maybe an external SWR meter so that I could kind of check the SWR better. I guess without the tuner in, the SWR meter of the Yaesu must be quite accurate, I would guess. But anyways, so I looked and I noted down each band which ones have the biggest mismatch. So once you put the tuner in, of course, my like 40 meters was just below 2 to 1. Once the tuner in, I get a 1-to-1 because the impedance is matched. But you got to keep in mind that 2-to-1 still exists. That my antenna in the back on 40 meters has a little bit of loss. Now, 2-to-1 isn't bad. It's not a big loss. You can cope with it. But still, that antenna has a 2-to-1 match when I'm transmitting. And I got to understand that there is loss. It doesn't change because I use an antenna tuner. The loss is still there. It's just that it made my radio happy because we matched the impedance. Storms, Raisins, and Cats. Dinner this evening. Enriched jalapeno cheddar sausages and red beans and rice. Sounds good. I'm having some pork. No, beef. Is it pork or beef? It's pork tacos I'm having with Mexican rice. Danny Shortwave says, great explanation of the impedance matching. I wouldn't have said it better. The word antenna tuner is misleading. Yeah, definitely. It doesn't tune the antenna. Sterling Harvey, Channel 4 from Dothan, Alabama, regular in our area during now it's South Sportic E-Skip. Keegan saw an ID ABC station on Channel 4 a couple of times in 2008. Tom Dennison, great show. Where do I find BBC World Service on shortwave? Greetings from Ottawa. At this time on shortwave, there's nothing really interesting. But if you listen, if you're a late night person, around 11 p.m. midnight 9915, around at 0405. You'll have 9915-6005, but you'll have to use upper sideband to avoid Cuba. And 6195 are not too bad usually. Daytime, afternoons, like around 2 to 3 p.m. afternoons here local. 11810 and 12095 are not too bad lately. So these are the ones you could try for. 7445 also around 20 UTC around 3 p.m. Could you close with Moscow Knights? Whoops. Yeah, absolutely. 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 We're going to do that. Shepherd Spy Michael has tonight. Cool. I'm getting hungry now. So, yep, we're going to close with Moscow Knights. Sheldon Harvey, I remember one year at the CIDX barbecue, we had E-Skip and set up a small black and white TV outside. We picked up a Nebraska station on Channel 4, watched a full episode of The Simpsons on it. That's cool. And you can still, some people still DX with the new digital TV now. So some people do still DX apparently. What else do we have? What else do we have here? Let me just check it out. Greg Walker, an old shortwave receivers, they had a knob called antenna trimmer. Is that the same as impedance matcher? I would guess it's I don't, it depends, because on a let's say that it was on a telescopic antenna or things like that, you could technically add a coil and have kind of a fake extend. I don't know if an antenna trimmer of those radios and impedance matcher. It could have been. I'm not sure. Mickey Dalmage, I'll have to check that out in these antenna trimmers. I remember antenna trimmer. Yeah. Mickey Dalmage is hearing 6955 kilohertz, almost booming into Alberta. Danny Shortwave, 6955 USB S7. I'm getting 800 Millennium on the ML830. King and DXer, remember watching The Simpsons and Malcolm in the Middle from Mexican TV stations on the low VHF in 2014. Yes, David's still in the chat room. Beam C-Bike, nice to have you here. For 100 watts, I agree using a matcher, but for QRP, it has to be a resonant antenna. Yeah, because at that level, you're using such low power that anything you lose is crucial, because you're already using so low power. At 100 watts, if you're matching and you're sending out 90, there's no difference, really. Honestly, at the other end, they won't even see a difference between 90 and 100. Even 75 to 100, there's not that much difference to it. But if you're using 5 watts and you lost 1 or 1.5, you're kind of in a bit. You lost a lot. You lost 20% in 1 watt. You lost 20%. That's for sure. So it could be a much more crucial thing in QRP. But then again, still, and the QRP, you don't want to lose anything. You want to match as much as possible. But still, then, a 2 to 1, if you lose 10%, 10% of 100 is 90 watts. 10% of 5 watts is you're actually losing. So 10% of 1 watt would be 100 milliwatts. You'd be losing about 500 milliwatts. So it's half a watt. So you'd be at 4.5 watts if I'm making the right calculations. There still shouldn't be that much of a difference between 4.5 and 5, but still, you want to have the best matching possible. That's for sure. You'll definitely have a better, even in any circumstances, anyways. Having a matching antenna is always the best that you can do. Robert Varner, nice to have you here. KC2TEL. You always want to have a matching antenna, anyways. Robert says, can see my cat GPS on my QRZ page. Cool. I've noticed a lot of amateur pages have a cat on their page. KWC1, Sony 6800. It was built-in pre-selector that works well. Yeah, pre-selector is a little different. The pre-selector is a matching tuning circuit. It's kind of a second tuning to match the frequency you're tuned to, and remove the everything that's outside. It's like having two tuning circuits. So it's a little different from, you know, an antenna tuner that matches impedance. What I would do with the ICF, Jim Gordon, is I remove the batteries for a day and wait, see if things come back. Au revoir, Laurette. Toujours un plaisir. À la prochaine. So, hey, we've been on for 3 hours and 30 minutes. Not bad. Not bad. Hope you enjoyed the show. I will be going to go and eat a little something. And how about we end this show with a little song from the past that was very was on Radio Moscow back in the day. So we're gonna leave the stream with our Moscow nights. Hope that you enjoyed the show today. 3 hours and a half minutes. Wasn't too bad. We'll be back next Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time as usual. And let's check that out. Thanks for being great fans, for being here. Thanks for everybody that gave a little tip through the chat. And hope to see all of you soon. Here we go. It's Radio Moscow. Here. And here we go, guys. Just going to try to let's start that again. Here we go. Love you all. Take care, guys. Stay safe.